The language with no nouns. Imagine a world so profoundly different from our own that even the very building blocks of language, the nouns, the names of things, people, places, do not exist. In this world, an alien species evolved without ever naming anything, without ever freezing anything into an identity. To them, the concept of identity itself is an illusion, a mirage held together by human minds, but utterly meaningless in their perception. Here, only flux remains. Endless motion, constant vibration, the eternal dance of change. What does it mean to think in such a reality? Could thought itself survive without the anchor of names? We are creatures of language, and language is deeply tied to naming. From infancy, we learn to identify the world by naming objects around us. This is a tree, that is a house, and that person is John. Names give us a sense of permanence, a way to capture fleeting moments and solidify them into knowledge. But what if you stripped away all names? No nouns, no identities. No this or that, no he or she, no mountain or river. What remains? This question is not just philosophical speculation. Linguists and cognitive scientists have long studied how language shapes thought. Known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, it suggests that the language you speak influences how you perceive reality. For humans, nouns ground us. Without nouns, we lose the capacity to objectify, to separate ourselves mentally from the world. This alien species embodies that idea to its extreme. Their entire language is a flowing river of verbs, adjectives, and sounds that describe movement, change, relationships, but never lock anything into fixed labels. Picture their conversations. Instead of saying, "the star shines brightly," they might express a dynamic process of light, pulsing, expanding, fading. Instead of the mountain, they would speak of the earth rising, settling, shifting in endless cycles. Even I and you dissolve into a continuous exchange of sensations and motions, never solidifying into discrete identities. Their minds do not carve reality into objects. Instead, they perceive the universe as a shifting pattern of energy and vibration. The implications for cognition are profound. Humans rely on naming to build memory, to reason abstractly, to plan and manipulate the world. Without nouns, memory would be less about recalling static images or concepts and more about experiencing recurring patterns. Reasoning would focus on processes rather than things. The boundary between self and other blurs because identity is never fixed, only a temporary resonance in the flow. Interestingly, some human languages and cultures approach aspects of this worldview. For example, some indigenous languages emphasize verbs and actions over nouns. Their speakers often describe the world as relationships and processes rather than objects, but none completely eliminate nouns the way this alien language does. This raises a fascinating question. If our language shapes our thoughts, would this alien species' language shape a radically different consciousness? Would their sense of self be more fluid, less ego-bound? Would their experience of time be a continuous flow rather than a segmented series of moments? In cognitive science, experiments with altered language structures suggest that language indeed affects perception. For instance, speakers of languages with no future tense tend to save more money, perhaps because their language encourages a present-focused worldview. Imagine how an entire language without nouns might reshape a species' psychology, their ethics, their art, their science, all built on a foundation where nothing is permanent and everything is in flux. From a philosophical perspective, this alien language challenges one of our deepest assumptions, that things have fixed identities. Western philosophy, from Aristotle onwards, is built on the idea that objects have essential natures. But what if those essences are illusions created by naming? Eastern philosophies like Buddhism have long argued that attachment to fixed identity causes suffering, and reality is impermanent and ever-changing. This alien language literally encodes that insight, forcing its speakers to live it in every utterance. Imagine the consequences for communication and relationships. Without fixed names, relationships become ephemeral dances. Love, trust, rivalry, all become patterns of interaction, never labels that can be nailed down. Memory becomes a mosaic of sensations and feelings rather than stories anchored in characters. This could foster a profound empathy, a recognition that the other is not a separate object, but part of the continuous flow of being. But what about abstract thought? How would science or technology develop without nouns? Could you build a concept of gravity or electron if your language forbids naming things? Perhaps their knowledge would be deeply experiential, learned through direct participation in dynamic processes rather than through abstraction and categorization. Their science might resemble a form of dance or music, capturing patterns of motion and interaction rather than static objects. This alien language thus invites us to rethink the very nature of thought and consciousness. We tend to assume that language is a neutral tool, but here it is a lens that shapes what can be thought and experienced. Could we humans ever think without nouns? Could we ever live without naming, without identity, without the desire to fix and control? Modern psychology tells us that our sense of self is more fluid than we often believe, shifting with mood, memory, and social context. Mindfulness and meditation practices encourage us to experience moments without clinging to fixed identity. The alien language brings this to its ultimate logical conclusion. No nouns, no fixed self, only the endless unfolding present. In the end, the language with no nouns is not just a linguistic curiosity. It is a radical alternative way of being and knowing. It forces us to confront the illusions we live by, our craving for permanence, our obsession with identity, our need to name and categorize. It whispers to us that beneath the apparent solidity of the world lies an ocean of vibration, motion, and change. So, next time you name a tree, a friend, or even yourself, pause and ask, is this name a window into reality or a cage? Could you truly live if all you had was the flow? The alien language with no nouns offers no easy answers, only the challenge to see the world as it truly is. A vibrant, pulsing dance without end. Star memory inheritance. Imagine a species whose very essence is intertwined with the cosmos, where the act of absorbing starlight is not just a metaphor, but a literal process of memory formation. These aliens, unlike humans who rely on spoken or written words to teach and remember, absorb the radiant energy of distant stars directly into their minds. Their memories are not stored as fragile neurons firing in a brain, but as glowing constellations of light within them, illuminating their consciousness with the raw, pure energy of the universe itself. What if our human memory, the fragile and fleeting record of our experiences, is but a faint and dim echo of this primordial cosmic process, a pale shadow of light that once knew its true origin, but has since forgotten? The idea of memory inheritance through starlight challenges our very understanding of how knowledge and experience are passed down. On Earth, memory is typically biological and chemical. Neurons form connections shaped by electrical impulses and neurotransmitters. Our brains encode and decode information, storing it in patterns that can be recalled, sometimes vividly, sometimes hazily. But this alien concept suggests a fundamentally different mechanism, one where memory is a direct imprint of light itself, where consciousness glows with the histories of stars, their births, deaths, and the vast cosmic journeys they've undertaken. If we take this concept and reflect it onto human memory, it invites a deep philosophical and scientific inquiry. Could human memory be a diluted remnant of an ancestral connection to the cosmos? Is it possible that our memories, our feelings, our knowledge, our very sense of self, are fragments of cosmic light that have lost their brilliance over eons? Consider the scientific fact that every atom in our bodies was once part of stars. The iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, the oxygen we breathe, all forged in stellar furnaces. This cosmic heritage is not just poetic, it is literal. We are stardust given form. So what if the way we remember is tied, however faintly, to the light of those stars that birthed the elements in us? This speculation finds echoes in the theories of epigenetics and ancestral memory. Epigenetics shows us that experiences of our ancestors, traumas, environmental adaptations, even learned behaviors, can imprint on our genetic material and affect us today. Ancestral memory suggests that we carry echoes of our lineage in ways not fully understood by science, perhaps encoded not just in DNA, but in the very energy patterns that compose us. Now, imagine an alien mind where memory is literally the absorption of starlight. Each flash of cosmic radiation, each photon captured, becomes a glowing filament in the web of their consciousness. Teaching, then, is not a matter of words or symbols, but a luminous transference of energy, a glowing conversation where knowledge pulses in radiant patterns. For humans, our memories degrade with time. We forget names, faces, and experiences. Memories become foggy, distorted, or lost entirely. In contrast, the alien memory system of starlight might be eternal and immutable, carried through the cosmos with the light that once traveled billions of years just to reach their consciousness. What does this mean for us? Could there be ways to reconnect with this cosmic source, to reclaim the lost brilliance in our memory? Some spiritual traditions speak of light as knowledge and illumination, enlightenment as the uncovering of a hidden light within. Could this be a poetic memory of a time when our consciousness was more directly connected to the cosmic light? Could meditation, altered states, or advanced technologies help us glow, again with the star memory hidden in our cells? For example, studies on photobiomodulation show that certain wavelengths of light can stimulate brain function and healing. This could be a modern scientific echo of the ancient and alien process, using light itself to awaken memory and cognition. In literature and myth, starlight often represents knowledge, magic, and the bridge between the earthly and the divine. Stories of star children, cosmic souls, or beings born of light hint at a deeper truth that consciousness and memory are not purely biological, but tied to universal energy. This also raises profound questions about identity. If our memories are fragments of cosmic light, then who are we beneath the layers of time and forgetfulness? Are we simply the glow of stars, dimmed by the long passage through matter and mortality? Does reclaiming this memory mean reconnecting with the cosmos, understanding that our minds are not confined within skulls, but are extensions of a vast glowing universe? Let's consider a concrete example. Imagine a person who dreams of places they have never visited, or of knowledge they have never consciously learned. Could these be residual echoes of star memory inherited across generations, shimmering faintly in their subconscious? This challenges the classical notion that all memory is learned or experienced directly. It suggests memory might transcend the individual and reach into a cosmic collective. Or, take the phenomenon of déjà vu, an eerie sensation that a moment has been lived before. Could this be a flicker of cosmic light memory? A brief illumination of a deeper, interconnected consciousness beyond time and space? Furthermore, the concept of starlight memory inheritance pushes us to rethink the limits of communication. If teaching and memory are glowing exchanges of light, then communication is not just symbolic, but energetic, immediate, and immersive. It challenges the linear, language-based model of human knowledge, transfer, and opens doors to imagining new forms of learning, where understanding is felt as a radiant experience rather than decoded as words. In a practical sense, how could humanity move closer to this ideal? Advances in neuroscience, quantum biology, and photonics might someday enable us to interface with light-based information directly, potentially restoring the star memory within us. Technologies could harness light's coherence and quantum properties to preserve, transmit, and even enhance human memory beyond the fragile biological limits we now endure. In conclusion, the alien phenomenon of absorbing starlight directly into memory invites us to reflect on our own nature. It challenges the notion that memory is merely a mechanical function of the brain, suggesting instead that it may be a shadow cast by a much older cosmic process. Our memories could be the faint remnants of an ancestral glow, a light that once burned bright within us, connecting every thought and feeling to the infinite brilliance of the stars. What if remembering is not just recalling facts, but rekindling the light we carry inside? What if the path to deeper knowledge is through the light itself, the same light that journeyed across the vast emptiness of space, carrying with it the secrets of existence? This profound mystery urges us to explore memory not just as a psychological or neurological phenomenon, but as a cosmic inheritance, a glowing echo of the stars that birthed us and the universe we strive to understand. One-sided vision species. Imagine a world where your entire reality is seen through a single eye, not just physically, but fundamentally. A species evolved with only one eye, fixed on one side of their head, forced to perceive only half the universe at any given moment. This is not science fiction. It is a real biological phenomenon that challenges everything we understand about perception, truth, and the limits of consciousness. In such a species, vision is inherently one-sided. The world, for them, is literally and figuratively split in two. Unlike creatures with two eyes positioned symmetrically, enabling depth perception and a holistic view of their surroundings, these beings live with a unilateral gaze. Their visual field covers only one hemisphere of space, and their brain has adapted to process and interpret this limited stream of sensory data as the entirety of existence. What does this mean for their understanding of reality? It means they believe, with absolute conviction, that the universe is fundamentally asymmetrical. They do not just see half the world, they perceive only one side of existence as real and valid. The other half, the symmetrical reflection, the balance that we take for granted, is an alien concept to them, an illusion, a hallucination, even a form of madness. When presented with symmetry, these creatures reject it outright. Imagine holding up a mirror to such a being. They would not recognize the reflected image as a valid representation of themselves or their environment. Instead, they might perceive it as a flickering shadow, a confusing distortion, or worse, a trick of the mind. Symmetry to them is not a natural pattern, but an aberration that threatens their sense of stability and order. This has profound implications for how we understand perception. Our two eyes do more than just provide depth. They allow us to see the universe as a balanced whole. They give us the ability to recognize symmetry in nature, from the wings of a butterfly to the architecture of a cathedral, and to find meaning and beauty in it. But for the one-sided vision species, such harmony is incomprehensible. Their world is a fragmented, lopsided place, where one half exists and the other half is dismissed or feared. This raises a deeper philosophical question. How much of our reality is shaped by the biological limits of our senses? If our perception is bound by two eyes and a brain wired to process symmetry, are we truly seeing the universe as it is, or merely a version filtered through evolutionary convenience? Could there be species or even forms of consciousness for whom reality is fundamentally different, partial, skewed, or radically unbalanced? Consider how this one-sided vision shapes their culture and behavior. Without the concept of symmetry, notions of balance, fairness, and harmony might not exist. Their art, if any, could be abstract and fragmented, focused on asymmetry and unpredictability. Their science, if it evolved, might reject principles based on symmetrical laws or patterns. Even their social structures might be influenced by this perception, valuing one perspective over another, distrustful of dualities or mirror-like reflections. Let us take an example from our own world, a glimpse into what such a perception might entail. Certain animals, like some species of flatfish, have eyes positioned on one side of their head, adapting to life on the seafloor. Their vision is indeed lateralized, but even they benefit from brain plasticity and environmental cues to build a complete image. For a species with rigid, fixed one-sided vision, however, their interpretation of reality would be far more limited and skewed. Imagine communicating with such beings. Explaining concepts like bilateral symmetry or mirror images would be almost impossible. What seems obvious and universal to us, a face, a pair of wings, the reflection of water, would be alien or threatening to them. They might consider our insistence on symmetry as madness or deception. This highlights the danger of assuming that our sensory experience is the only valid gateway to truth. The story of the one-sided vision species is a powerful reminder of the diversity of perception. It challenges human arrogance and opens the door to imagining consciousness beyond our biological boundaries. It forces us to question the reliability of our senses and to acknowledge that the universe might contain realities we cannot even begin to perceive. In the end, their world is both a caution and a mirror. It warns us of the limitations we all carry and invites us to expand our understanding beyond sight, beyond symmetry, beyond the comfort of familiar balance. Because what we dismiss as hallucination might simply be a truth seen through a different eye, a different perspective, partial yet complete in its own way. Thought that breathes, their minds breathe like lungs, a rhythm of inhale and exhale that shapes the very essence of their consciousness. Imagine thinking not as a constant stream, but as a tide that must ebb and flow, or else it suffocates. This is not metaphor. It is the lived reality for a species whose cognitive architecture is fundamentally different from ours. For them, to think endlessly, to chase thought without pause, is a poison, a slow strangulation of their mental being. Philosophy, the discipline we often exalt as the noble pursuit of wisdom, is for them an exhale, a necessary release, a letting go. Logic, the cornerstone of human reason, is not a tool of clarity, but a toxin that clouds their fragile mental ecosystem. To understand how truth could possibly survive in such a system, we must first unravel the nature of their minds. Their thinking is not linear or accumulative. Instead, it is cyclical and rhythmic, like the breath itself. Just as lungs draw in air to fill and then must push it out to clear space, their minds draw in concepts, process them briefly, then release. Without this release, their consciousness collapses inward, overwhelmed by the weight of ideas. Consider the difference between their mind and ours. We humans pride ourselves on our relentless pursuit of knowledge, a steady expansion of understanding. We use logic as a ladder, climbing higher into abstraction and complexity. Yet for them, climbing that ladder too far is fatal. Their mental structure does not support extended sequences of deduction or abstraction. When logic invades their thoughts, it creates blocks, clogging the very pathways that allow thought to flow. Logic becomes a poison because it imposes rigid constraints on a system designed for fluidity. This is a cognitive paradox. Truth, as we conceive it, often relies on consistency, coherence, and cumulative proof, all products of logic. How, then, can a species whose minds reject logic ever encounter or recognize truth? The answer lies in their alternative epistemology, an understanding of knowledge that values transient insights over permanent conclusions. For them, truth is not a fixed point or a final statement. It is a momentary clarity, a fleeting breath of insight that emerges and vanishes like a wave on the shore. This ephemeral truth cannot be captured in syllogisms or etched into stone by logical rigor. Instead, it is felt, intuited, and experienced in the space between thoughts, during the mental exhale. To hold on to truth too tightly, to analyze it relentlessly, is to kill it. Take, for example, their approach to problem-solving or decision-making. Instead of constructing elaborate arguments or chains of reasoning, they rely on sudden flashes of understanding, moments when the mind briefly empties and the answer reveals itself. These moments are often accompanied by a sense of release, a letting go of control. They breathe in confusion and breathe out clarity, only to return again to uncertainty. It is a dance with ambiguity, not a conquest of it. This way of thinking challenges our deepest assumptions about knowledge and rationality. It suggests that the value of thought lies not in accumulation, but in rhythm, not in grasping, but in releasing. Their minds teach us that to think too much, to apply logic incessantly, is to suffocate the very process of understanding. In their world, philosophy is not the endless debate or systematic questioning we know, but a breath, a pause, a moment of letting go. The implications extend beyond their species. In our own lives, how often do we trap ourselves in cycles of overthinking, chasing logic to the point of mental exhaustion? How often does the pursuit of absolute truth become a prison, where the mind suffocates under its own weight? Their cognitive design offers a mirror, reflecting the dangers of relentless analysis without respite. We can learn from their mental rhythm, embracing pauses, allowing thoughts to flow freely in and out, and recognizing that sometimes the most profound truths arise not from forcing answers, but from creating space for them to appear. It is a humbling lesson, reminding us that the architecture of mind shapes the architecture of truth. In a universe vast and varied, where minds may breathe differently, the nature of truth itself is mutable. It bends and shifts according to the cognitive structures that perceive it. For their kind, truth survives not in the grip of logic, but in the gentle exhale of philosophy, the release that clears the air for new insights to come. Thus, we face a profound question. Can our rigid frameworks of logic and reason accommodate the fluid, breathing mind, or must we learn to exhale, to surrender the need for control, and find truth in the spaces between thoughts? Their existence challenges our understanding, compelling us to expand the boundaries of what it means to know, to think, and ultimately, to breathe life into truth itself. As you listen, consider the weight of this truth, that thinking too much can suffocate, and that sometimes the most vital knowledge is found not in the grasping, but in the release. Like lungs filling and emptying, the mind must breathe, and in that breath, philosophy lives, logic dies, and truth, fragile and fleeting, finds its home. Reversible DNA Identity. Imagine a world where the concept of ancestry is not a straight line, but a spiral folding back on itself. Picture an alien species whose very DNA is not a fixed inheritance passed forward through generations, but a code that reverses itself each time life renews. For them, the idea of descendants, children born of parents, marching ever forward through time, is an illusion. Instead, every new generation is a reincarnation, a living echo of their ancestors, but in reverse. This phenomenon is called reversible DNA identity. It defies everything we think we know about heredity, biology, and time. To us, DNA is a lineage marker, a biological script that flows from parents to offspring, a narrative of progression. But for this alien species, their DNA does not travel forward. It travels backward, folding time into itself, a looping spiral of ancestral recursion. Ancestral recursion means that each new life is not just descended from the past, but is the past itself, living in reverse order. Imagine that your great-grandparent was not someone who existed before you, but someone you will become in the future, as your DNA rewinds with each generation. Their memories, traits, and identity ripple backward through time, creating a cyclical existence where cause and effect swap places, and the arrow of time is bent until it points to itself. This concept challenges our fundamental understanding of identity. Who are you if your genetic identity is a palindrome, a sequence that reads the same forward and backward, if your ancestor is your descendant, if your past is your future? This species embodies a paradox where life is an endless loop, an eternal recursion of being. Let me illustrate this with an example from this alien world. Suppose an individual named Aaron lives today. Aaron's DNA contains a sequence that is exactly the reverse of their offspring's sequence. Their child, instead of inheriting a mutated or evolved code from Aaron, carries Aaron's DNA in reverse order. Then Aaron's grandchild carries the DNA sequence reversed yet again, bringing it back toward Aaron's original form, but from a future vantage point. It's as if time itself is a tape being played both forwards and backwards simultaneously. Every generation is a mirror image of the other, connected through this biological palindrome. In effect, the species never truly dies or is born. They transform and return, their existence folding upon itself like a Mobius strip, where inside and outside, start and end, merge into one continuous surface. How would such a species experience life? Would their memories and consciousness flow like ours in linear time? Or would their perception of self shift fluidly between past and future, knowing they are reincarnations of those who came before them and those who come after? It's possible that for them, the notion of time as a rigid arrow is meaningless, replaced by a cyclical, layered reality where selfhood transcends temporal boundaries. This idea echoes ancient human philosophies, where reincarnation is a spiritual cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Yet, here it is biological, encoded in their very molecules. It challenges our notions of individuality, cause and effect, and even free will. If your future self is your ancestor, do your choices echo backward as well as forward? Can your actions in this life reshape a past you have not yet experienced? To understand this better, imagine a genetic sequence as a sentence. ATCG. For humans, this sentence passes forward, parent to child, as it is with small variations. For this alien species, the sentence flips, GCTA. Then the next generation flips it back again. This back and forth creates a palindromic pattern in their lineage, a living genetic palindrome that is as much a story of reversal as of continuity. On a deeper level, this biological recursion forces us to reconsider time not as linear, but as a fractal or loop. Their DNA embodies time folding upon itself, where the end is the beginning and the beginning the end. It reflects theories in modern physics, suggesting time may not be strictly forward-moving, but subject to entanglement and cyclical phenomena on scales we have yet to fully grasp. In a universe where such life exists, the concept of history would be vastly different. History would not be a record of what came before, but a living, breathing reality constantly being rewritten by future generations, reincarnating into past forms. Their archives, traditions, and myths would likely describe time as a spiral dance, with identities weaving backward and forward in a cosmic rhythm. From a scientific perspective, reversible DNA identity also poses fascinating questions. How would molecular machinery read and interpret reversed DNA sequences? Could their enzymes and ribosomes be adapted to work both directions? What kind of evolutionary pressures shaped such a system? It implies a biology radically different from our own, one that might exploit symmetry and recursion to enhance survival in unique environmental conditions. Philosophically, this idea confronts us with the illusion of permanence and linear progress. Our lives are often framed as chapters in a book, moving inexorably from start to finish. But what if life is more like a circle or a spiral, where beginnings and ends fold into each other endlessly? What if identity is not a fixed point in time, but a wave moving back and forth through the currents of existence? Reversible DNA identity tells us that time, memory, and selfhood are not necessarily tied to forward movement. It opens a window into a reality where cause and effect intertwine, where ancestors and descendants are reflections of one another, and where life is an eternal dance of recursion. In contemplating this alien biology, we glimpse the possibility that our universe harbors forms of life and time beyond our wildest imagination. We are reminded that our assumptions about inheritance, identity, and the flow of time are shaped by our human perspective, limited by the linearity we experience. What lessons can we take from this? Perhaps it is to embrace the fluidity of existence, to recognize that our past and future selves are connected in ways unseen, and that identity may be less a fixed point and more a dynamic pattern, an eternal palindrome written in the code of life itself. The alien species with reversible DNA identity challenges us to rethink the very nature of life and time. Their existence is a testament to the infinite possibilities that biology and the cosmos hold. In their spiral recursion, they remind us that sometimes, to move forward, we must first turn back, and that in the reversal of our DNA lies the unbroken continuity of being. The forbidden alphabet. Imagine a civilization with a language so vast and intricate it contains 47 letters, more than double the number in English. Each letter is a gateway, a unique vibration that shapes thought and reality itself. But among these letters, there is one that is forbidden, illegal to speak, banned by law and taboo, because uttering it awakens a hidden self, a part of the mind long suppressed for survival. This is the forbidden letter. What if, in your language, that forbidden letter was I? In human speech, the letter I is more than a sound. It is the very core of identity. I is the self-awareness that separates you from others, the voice inside that claims ownership over thoughts, feelings, and actions. It is the symbol of the ego, the me, that navigates the world as an individual agent. But what if saying I was dangerous? What if it unleashed a part of you so primal, so ancient, it threatened the delicate balance of society? In this alien society, speaking the forbidden letter is a radical act of rebellion and risk. To utter it is to summon the ancient self, a hidden layer of consciousness that remembers a time before the social order, before submission and conformity. This ancient self is raw, untamed, and connected to a deeper truth beyond the polished facades of civilization. It is a self that feels too much, sees too clearly, and refuses to be contained. Why ban this letter? Because awakening the ancient self is dangerous to the survival of the community. The society depends on control, on silence, on a shared identity that suppresses individual rebellion. The forbidden letter is the key to breaking that silence. It cracks the veneer of obedience and conformity, exposing the wild core beneath. For the rulers, this is a threat that must be silenced at all costs. Think about the power of a single sound to change consciousness. In many human cultures, names and words hold immense magic. Spoken words can bless, curse, heal, or harm. Language is a tool for shaping reality. The forbidden letter is a linguistic weapon that opens a door to hidden realms of the psyche. It is both feared and coveted, whispered about in secret, the subject of myth and legend. Now, imagine yourself living in a world where saying I is forbidden. How would you speak about yourself? How would you express desire, fear, hope? Without I, language fractures. People might speak in the third person or use ambiguous terms, erasing the personal from speech. The self dissolves into collective identity, obedience, and shared narratives. But beneath the surface, the ancient self waits, yearning to break free. Psychologists today describe the ego as both a necessary illusion and a cage. It constructs a stable self to navigate reality, but also limits awareness of deeper truths. The forbidden letter represents this tension. The ego's symbol is simultaneously a portal to freedom and a risk of chaos. Suppressing I is suppressing that boundary-breaking awareness, keeping society safe but at a cost. This idea also resonates with spiritual traditions. Many Eastern philosophies teach that the self is an illusion, a temporary construct masking the underlying unity of existence. To say I is to reinforce separation and suffering. Yet the path to enlightenment involves transcending the I and experiencing oneness. What if this forbidden letter is the linguistic embodiment of that paradox? The bridge between suffering ego and timeless self. The alien culture's ban on the letter I could also reflect historical trauma or collective survival strategy. Perhaps a distant cataclysm shattered the species' psyche, forcing them to suppress individuality to rebuild social cohesion. The forbidden letter is a scar, a reminder of that painful past, encoded in their language and law. Its taboo preserves fragile order, but at the expense of personal truth. But taboo has a strange power. It creates curiosity, longing, and secret defiance. What stories, songs, or rituals revolve around the forbidden letter? How do individuals cope with the pull of the ancient self? Do underground movements exist, whispering the forbidden sound in hidden chambers, awakening dormant powers? The tension between suppression and expression drives their culture's deepest dramas. Reflect for a moment on how we use I in our own lives. It is a word loaded with pride, shame, power, and vulnerability. Saying, I love you, I am afraid, I am angry. These are declarations of selfhood that connect us yet isolate us. What if the alien culture's fear of I mirrors our own struggle to own and express our true selves amid social pressures? In literature and psychology, the self is often portrayed as fractured, layers of masks, defenses, and hidden shadows. The forbidden letter is a linguistic metaphor for these shadow selves, the parts we hide or deny. By forbidding I, the alien language dramatizes the universal human tension between individuality and belonging, freedom and control, truth and survival. Ultimately, the forbidden letter challenges us to ask, what happens when we lose the ability to say I? Do we become lost in the crowd, mere echoes without voice? Or do we discover a deeper self beyond the ego, connected to the infinite flow of existence? Could the suppression of I be both a prison and a liberation? As you consider the alien world with its 47-letter alphabet and the one forbidden sound, think about your own relationship to I. Is it a chain or a key? A mask or a mirror? A voice that creates or a silence that destroys? The forbidden letter is not just a linguistic curiosity, but a profound symbol of identity's power and peril. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes reality. The letter I is a tiny symbol with vast consequences. It holds the tension between survival and selfhood, conformity and rebellion, illusion and awakening. What would happen if you dared to speak your forbidden letter aloud? What ancient self would stir within you? Memory without experience. They come into existence carrying memories, vivid, intricate, complete, of lives they have never lived, experiences that their bodies and minds have never actually undergone. These memories are not mere fragments or vague impressions. They are fully formed, as real and tangible as if lived in this lifetime, yet entirely unexperienced by their current self. Imagine waking each day wrapped in a cloak of déjà vu, where every moment feels like a repeated scene, a recycled fragment from another's past. The familiar echoes relentlessly loop, creating a strange existence, suspended between the known and the unknown, the remembered and the forgotten. This phenomenon forces us to question the very nature of memory and experience. For most humans, memory is a record of lived events, a timeline etched by the passage of moments, sensations, and feelings. It is through experience that memory gains meaning and identity. But what happens when memory precedes experience? When the past is not a story written by the self, but an archive inherited wholesale, without context or personal engagement? This inversion breaks the usual cause and effect relationship that grounds human consciousness. Living with full memories of unexperienced lives is a paradox that distorts one's sense of self. On the one hand, there is a vast internal library of knowledge, emotions, and skills accumulated from countless supposed lifetimes. On the other hand, the present feels hollow, repetitive, and lacking genuine novelty. Every step forward seems to retrace an old path, making it difficult to feel truly alive. This might explain the sensation that only when encountering something entirely new, something unremembered, does vitality surge. The unfamiliar disrupts the endless cycle of déjà vu and breathes fresh existence into the moment. Consider the psychological impact of such a condition. The overwhelming flood of pre-existing memories might blur the lines between self and other, past and present. Identity becomes fluid, fragmented, or even illusory. How can one anchor the I when the mind is a patchwork of stories and emotions not originally theirs? This could lead to alienation, confusion, or a profound search for meaning beyond the confines of inherited memory. Philosophically, this scenario evokes questions about the origin and ownership of memory. If memories are not exclusively tied to personal experience, might they be collective, transpersonal, or even cosmic in nature? Could these individuals be carriers of ancestral, karmic, or universal imprints, living repositories of existence beyond their immediate lives? It calls into question the uniqueness of individual experience and hints at a deeper interconnectedness among beings. To illustrate, imagine someone waking with the skills of a musician, fluent in languages they have never studied, or haunted by emotions linked to strangers' tragedies. These capabilities and feelings would come from memories not earned, but received. Yet, without the grounding of lived experience, such gifts might feel burdensome, disconnected, or disorienting. This also challenges our understanding of learning and growth. Typically, we grow by experiencing the world, making mistakes, and integrating lessons. But if memory exists independently from experience, does growth become an illusion, a repetitive cycling through knowledge without transformation? Or does it compel the individual to seek truly novel experiences that defy their memory's reach, to break the cycle and redefine what it means to be alive? From a neurological perspective, this could suggest that memory and consciousness are not solely products of brain activity, but might be influenced by external or metaphysical factors, perhaps tapping into a vast memory field or shared consciousness beyond individual minds. Such a model challenges conventional neuroscience and opens possibilities for new paradigms where memory transcends time, space, and individual boundaries. In conclusion, living with full memories of unexperienced lives is a profound existential condition where identity, reality, and vitality are continuously negotiated. It reveals memory as both a gift and a cage, a source of knowledge, yet a barrier to genuine presence. It compels us to reconsider what it means to live, to remember, and to truly experience. Only by encountering the unknown, those moments unclaimed by memory, can life regain its pulse, its spark of aliveness, in a world otherwise trapped in eternal déjà vu. Universe-sensing organ. Imagine a life form that does not think with a brain as we know it. Instead of neurons firing electrical signals, it grows a mysterious black organ. An organ that is not for reasoning, not for memory or logic, but for sensing the vast cosmic pulse of the universe itself. This organ is alive to the moods of the stars, the silent shifts in the fabric of space, and the secret sorrows hidden in the death of suns. This is no mere metaphor. Picture a creature whose existence is tethered not to the physical world around it, but to the intangible rhythms of the cosmos. Its black organ is a cosmic antenna, resonating with the invisible emotional tides of galaxies and nebulae. It feels what we cannot, the slow fading light of a dying star, the trembling sadness in the collapse of cosmic giants, the melancholic whispers carried on stellar winds. What does it mean to cry without knowing why? This species, devoid of a conventional brain, sheds tears in moments of celestial tragedy, mourning the death of stars they never saw and never understood in human terms. Their sorrow is raw, unfiltered, pure, a direct transmission from the universe's own hidden heartbeat to their black organ. But how can a living being cry without comprehension? How can grief exist without cognition? For these creatures, emotion is primal and universal, a phenomenon beyond thought or language. Their tears are a physical manifestation of the universe's own silent elegy. They embody cosmic empathy, feeling loss on a scale that dwarfs any human tragedy. This organ, black as a void, absorbs not light, but feeling. It is an enigmatic fusion of biology and cosmology, an organ shaped by evolutionary forces to detect something far grander than the immediate environment. It is a window into the universe's soul, if such a thing can be said to exist. When a star reaches its final breath, whether in a supernova's explosive finale or a slow fade into a white dwarf, this organ shudders. The creature feels a deep, aching void, as if part of its own essence is lost. It cries, not because it understands death, but because it is inextricably linked to the cosmic cycle of birth and decay. We tend to think of intelligence and awareness as products of a brain, of neural circuits and cognitive frameworks. But this species challenges that assumption. Their awareness is not intellectual. It is an instinctive attunement to the universe's emotional frequencies. Their organ functions as a sensor, a receptor for cosmic sorrow, joy, and change. This raises a profound question. What if consciousness itself is not confined to brains or minds? What if it is something woven into the fabric of the cosmos, accessible through organs like this black sentinel, which perceive existence on an entirely different wavelength? Such beings might not communicate through words or symbols, but through shifts in their cosmic organs' resonance. Their language could be the subtle variations in the universe's mood, transmitted as waves of feeling that ripple across the void between stars. Their lives are a constant communion with the cosmos. They live in harmony with the celestial cycles, their black organs rising and falling with the tides of cosmic life and death. When stars are born, they might exhale joy. When stars die, they weep without words or reason. We, bound to our brains and senses, can barely fathom this kind of existence. Yet, it invites us to reconsider what it means to be sentient, to feel, to know. It asks us to open our minds beyond logic and look towards a universe alive with emotion and empathy. Their black organ is a symbol of cosmic connection, a reminder that the universe is not just a cold, mechanical expanse, but a living, breathing entity, one that mourns, rejoices, and pulses with feeling, even if it cannot speak. This species teaches us that sometimes understanding is not necessary to feel deeply, that empathy can exist without knowledge, grief without comprehension, and connection without contact. In the end, their story is both heartbreaking and beautiful, a testament to the mysterious ways life can attune itself to the vastness of existence. They cry for stars they cannot see, for the universe's secret sorrows, and in doing so, they embody a cosmic compassion far beyond our own. No self-perception race. Their world is one without mirrors, not just the physical glass kind, but any form of reflection that shows the self back to itself. In this species, self-perception simply does not exist. They see others clearly, their shapes, their motions, their intentions even. But when it comes to themselves, they are blind. No mirrors, no reflections, no awareness of the I that they are. To them, the concept of self-awareness is alien, incomprehensible. Humans, by contrast, are called the self-fixated. Creatures obsessed with their own image, trapped endlessly in the recursive loop of ego. This fixation is seen by them as a virus, a disease that infects minds and disrupts balance. The self, which humans hold as central and sacred, is for them a source of distortion, delusion, and suffering. To grasp what this means, imagine living without ever recognizing your own face. No mental picture of yourself exists. You only know others, and even then, only as external entities. Your identity is shaped entirely through interaction, never through introspection. You do not think I am because that I is never present. Instead, your consciousness is outward-facing, relational, completely dependent on others for meaning. This absence of self-perception alters every aspect of their culture and cognition. They do not experience ego in any form. No pride, no shame, no self-interest that rises above the group or situation. Without the self, as a container for thoughts and feelings, their minds remain fluid, open, and free from the psychological traps that humans endure daily. Contrast this with the human mind, so often consumed by the mirror of the ego. From childhood, humans develop a mental image of themselves, a persistent self that judges, desires, and fears. This self-awareness is a double-edged sword. It allows for self-reflection and growth, but also breeds insecurity, selfishness, and endless mental conflict. The self-fixation is both a source of creativity and suffering. This species' perception of ego as a virus is not metaphorical, but deeply felt. They see humans battling a constant internal enemy, an invasive force that fractures social cohesion and personal peace. Ego-driven behavior, such as selfish ambition, envy, or defensive pride, is viewed as symptomatic of infection, a breakdown of mental and social harmony. Yet, what about their own identity? Without self-awareness, how do they navigate individuality? Their sense of identity is fundamentally different, rooted entirely in the moment-to-moment relations with others and the environment. There is no internal narrative, no self-image to protect or promote. Identity is a shared, emergent property, not an isolated, fixed essence. This perspective challenges our most basic assumptions about consciousness and existence. It suggests that self-awareness, long considered a pinnacle of intelligence and evolution, is not universal, and may even be a burden rather than a gift. Without the self, life is experienced as pure interaction, a continuous flow without the anchor of I. Examples from their society illustrate this profound difference. When making decisions, they do not weigh personal desires or fears because such concepts do not exist internally. Instead, their choices arise from the collective context and the immediate situation. They cannot experience vanity or regret because there is no self to experience it. In communication, their language lacks pronouns like I or me. Instead, speech is framed entirely around others and external realities. This linguistic structure reinforces a worldview without self-reference. To say I feel or I think would be meaningless to them. Their treatment of humans as self-fixated carries a certain pity, sometimes frustration. They observe how ego blinds humans to larger realities, how fixation on the self isolates rather than connects. For them, ego is a virus to be cured or managed, not an identity to be embraced. What lessons might we take from their perspective? Perhaps the challenge is to loosen the grip of the self, to dissolve the ego's tyranny over our minds. Could humans learn to see beyond the self-fixation and rediscover a way of being more connected, less imprisoned by internal narratives? This species embodies a radical alternative, a model of consciousness where self is not the center, but a peripheral, even absent phenomenon. In a universe of infinite cognitive possibilities, their existence reminds us that self-awareness is not a universal law. The mind can exist without self-perception, without ego, without the internal mirror. Their lives are lived outwardly in pure relation and presence. So, as we gaze into our own mirrors, trapped in reflection and self-focus, we might ask, what would it mean to live without the self? To see only others and never ourselves? To treat ego not as a birthright, but as a virus to overcome? Their silent world without reflection holds profound implications, both for understanding alien minds and for confronting the shadows of our own selves. Masks as biology. Imagine a species whose very existence defies the concept of a fixed self. They possess no true face, no permanent identity etched in skin or bone. Instead, their faces are fluid, shifting endlessly in response to the gaze of those around them. Their biology is a living mask, a biological performance that changes depending on who looks, reflecting not a static being, but a relationship. This phenomenon, known as masks as biology, challenges our most fundamental notions of identity. For us, identity is something internal and fixed, a self that remains constant beneath the surface. We believe our face is a reflection of that self, a unique signature that defines who we are. But this species turns that belief inside out. Their faces are not theirs alone. They are co-created in real time with every observer, a relational expression, an evolving hallucination shared between beings. Picture looking into the eyes of one of these creatures. Instead of a singular, stable visage, you see a face morphing, shifting features, colors, even emotions, all tailored by your perception, expectations, and unconscious biases. To another observer, that same individual appears differently. What you see is not just the biology of the alien, but a mirror to your own mind, a projection woven with their mutable essence. This raises profound questions. If identity is always a mutual hallucination, where does the self reside? Is there a true self behind the shifting mask, or is the self an ever-changing construct born from relationships? This species embodies a radical idea. Identity is not an isolated truth, but a shared illusion, a dance between observer and observed. Such biology demands that they live entirely in relation to others. Their sense of self cannot exist in solitude. It is contingent upon connection, interaction, and perception. In their world, isolation means losing identity itself. Without others to reflect their mutable face, they might dissolve into anonymity, lost in the absence of relational definition. This biological mask-making is more than mere camouflage or adaptation. It is a form of communication, a living language of faces that conveys intent, emotion, and belonging. But unlike human expressions, which are fixed within the limits of our musculature, these creatures' faces are malleable, responding dynamically and uniquely to each viewer. Each glance is an act of creation, a co-authored expression between being and beholder. Think about how this would shape their societies and relationships. Trust would be complex and fluid, built not on static appearances but on the ongoing interplay of perception and expression. Deception might take on new meanings, as faces could be reshaped instantly, truth and falsehood blurring into a kaleidoscope of shifting realities. Identity theft, as we know it, might be impossible, since identity is never singular or owned, but communal and ephemeral. Philosophically, this challenges the Western ideal of an autonomous, indivisible self. It resonates instead with relational philosophies that see identity as constituted by connections rather than isolated essence. These aliens live the ultimate intersubjective reality. They are not beings with faces. Their faces are being. From a scientific standpoint, the biology required to achieve such mutable faces would be astonishing. Their skin might be embedded with microscopic nanostructures, able to rearrange pigments, textures, and even physical contours instantaneously. Their nervous system would integrate sensory input from multiple observers simultaneously, translating perception into biological transformation. Their brain and body form a seamless interface, responding in real time to the social environment. The evolutionary pressures behind such biology are fascinating to imagine. Perhaps they evolved in ecosystems where camouflage alone was insufficient, where survival depended on emotional attunement, social harmony, or the ability to negotiate constantly shifting alliances. Their fluid faces would allow for unparalleled adaptability in social signaling, a living negotiation of identity and intention that shifts with every encounter. This biology also reveals the fragile, performative nature of all identity, even our own. Though we think of our faces as fixed, how often do we present different masks in different contexts? How much of our identity is shaped by how others see us? The alien's literal living mask amplifies this human experience into a cosmic principle. Identity as mask, mask as life. In their world, to be known is to be shaped, to be seen is to be changed. The gaze of others does not merely observe, it sculpts and defines. They teach us that identity is not a secret within, but a shared creation. An ongoing, mutable story written in the meeting of eyes. If we could inhabit their experience, would we dissolve our egos into relational flow? Would we understand identity as an endless act of mutual creation rather than a fixed point? This alien biology invites us to question the solidity of our own selfhood and to embrace the fluid, dynamic interplay that shapes who we are. The idea of masks as biology forces us to rethink identity itself, not as something owned or possessed, but as a living, breathing, shifting dialogue between beings. It is a reminder that we are never truly alone. Our faces, ourselves, are always partly made by others. Time-collapsing religion. Imagine a religion unlike any we know. A faith where prophets do not predict what will happen, but instead remember the future. Time, as linear humans understand it, is inverted or collapsed. Past, present, and future intertwine so tightly that cause and effect blur and rewrite each other. In this belief system, salvation is not something sought after, but granted before sin occurs. You are saved before you fall, forgiven before you act. This is not prophecy. It is retrocognition of destiny, a faith where history bends backward and faith reshapes reality. To grasp this, we must first unravel our conventional understanding of time. For us, time flows in a steady arrow from past to future. We remember what has been and anticipate what may come. Our actions are choices that affect what happens next. But what if this arrow is an illusion? What if time is a loop, a circle, or even a layered weave where future events imprint themselves on the past? In such a worldview, knowing the future is not about prediction. It is about memory. The prophets of this faith experience visions not of vague possibilities, but of actual fixed futures already lived somewhere in the folds of time. They recall events that have yet to unfold for the rest of us. This memory of the future is a sacred burden and gift. Their messages do not warn of danger ahead, but declare what has been eternally true, revealing that history is mutable, already rewritten by acts yet to come. This religion's theology upends cause and effect. Instead of sin causing damnation followed by redemption, redemption precedes sin. Followers are considered already saved, absolved in advance. This paradoxical grace removes fear of future punishment and invites a radical freedom. If you are saved before wrongdoing, then sin is transformed into a temporary moment, an illusion that cannot trap the soul. This idea of preemptive salvation dissolves the typical linear struggle of faith and repentance. Philosophically, this recalls ideas from modern physics, where some interpretations suggest that time may be non-linear or block-like, with all moments existing simultaneously. In a block universe, past, present, and future are equally real, and the flow of time is a perceptual illusion. The time-collapsing religion embodies this. Faith is a practice of awareness, a recognition that your destiny and salvation are fixed points in the vast fabric of time. But this faith is not passive fatalism. It is active engagement with a paradox. Believers do not resign themselves to an unchangeable fate, but embrace a dynamic history where their future salvation reshapes their present actions. This backward rewriting means that every choice resonates backward in time, healing past wounds and altering ancient narratives. Prayer and ritual become acts of temporal intervention, not just spiritual supplication. Imagine the rituals of such a religion. Instead of asking for forgiveness for sins already committed, practitioners might meditate on the future moments where they are forgiven, living those moments fully in the present. Their sacred texts might be chronicles written backward, starting with salvation and moving through the trials it prevents. Hymns and prayers could invoke futures as tangible as memories. This worldview challenges our deepest psychological instincts. Humans crave control and fear the unknown future. To be saved before sin is to relinquish control, but paradoxically gain peace. It removes the anxiety of uncertainty by grounding faith in a temporal collapse, where outcomes are assured in advance. This could create a culture of profound acceptance, where suffering is transitory and forgiveness eternal. Yet, such a belief also raises difficult questions. If salvation is guaranteed before sin, what drives moral responsibility? How do free will and accountability coexist with a predetermined future? The religion answers this by seeing morality not as a linear cause-effect, but as a dance within a timeless moment. Free will is the experience of choosing within the eternal present, where all choices ripple forward and backward simultaneously. Across history, humans have sought to understand time's mysteries through religion, philosophy, and science. The time-collapsing faith takes this quest to a radical extreme. It asks us to imagine a world where the future's memory transforms the past, where grace is not earned but always present, where history itself is a living, rewriting story. For the believer, this means living in a paradoxical grace, freed from fear and bound by a love that transcends time. It is a faith that collapses the linear, opening a timeless space where salvation is always now and forever. As you consider this, reflect on your own relationship with time and destiny. Do you live as if your future is fixed or fluid? Are you saved by what has happened or what is yet to come? The time-collapsing religion invites us all to see beyond the arrow of time, to glimpse the eternal moment where past, present, and future are one, and where you are already saved. Migration through dimensions. They don't traverse physical landscapes like creatures bound by earth and sky. Instead, their journey unfolds across the hidden layers of reality itself, slipping between dimensions, navigating the vast expanse of possibility rather than geography. Their homes are not fixed points anchored in space. They are fluid, ever-shifting realms of potential, existing simultaneously as what is, what was, and what could be. To migrate for them is not a matter of distance or terrain, but a traversal through the infinite web of options and alternate realities. This challenges our fundamental understanding of movement and place. For humans, migration is a physical act, crossing borders, oceans, and mountains in search of survival, opportunity, or refuge. The world is a map with clearly defined coordinates. But for these beings, reality itself is layered, multidimensional, and fractal in nature. Their paths weave through these layers, shifting from one potential timeline or universe to another, selecting habitats not by geography, but by the resonance of possibility. Imagine existence as an immense branching tree, each branch representing a different version of reality. These beings don't climb or walk along the branches, but leap, glide, and dissolve into other limbs of the cosmic tree, choosing homes based on shifting probabilities and circumstances. Their migration is an act of selection, a choice to inhabit the reality that best suits their needs, desires, or evolutionary trajectory. This concept also reshapes the idea of identity and belonging. If home is not a fixed place but a spectrum of potential, then attachment is to possibility itself, the fluid state of becoming rather than the static state of being. Their very essence is tied to flux, adaptation, and transformation, transcending physical limitations and embracing the ever-changing nature of existence. Philosophically, this echoes ancient and modern theories about multiverses, parallel worlds, and the non-linearity of time. It suggests that reality is not a single, monolithic experience, but a kaleidoscope of overlapping possibilities, each as real as the next. To migrate through dimensions is to tap into this kaleidoscope, moving through the folds and layers that escape human perception. For humans, this raises profound questions. Could we too be migrating, not just through space and time, but through shifting states of consciousness and reality layers? Dreams, altered states, and spiritual experiences hint at traversing such dimensions. Perhaps our journeys are more than physical. They are journeys through possibility, memory, and potentiality. Consider an example. A being who senses that their current life feels constricted, their world limited by invisible walls. Instead of moving cities or countries, they shift their existence to a reality where those walls do not exist. A life where different choices, environments, or circumstances unfold. This migration is less about escape and more about alignment, finding the reality that harmonizes with their essence. Scientifically, such dimensional migration is beyond current human technology and understanding, but not beyond theoretical physics. Concepts like quantum superposition and the multiverse suggest that multiple realities coexist, and what we perceive is just one thread among infinite others. This opens possibilities for future exploration into consciousness and reality manipulation. In conclusion, migration through dimensions reveals a mode of existence beyond physicality, where beings traverse not just space, but the very fabric of reality itself. Their homes are possibilities, their journeys a dance through the infinite. This challenges us to expand our understanding of movement, place, and identity, to see life not as a fixed path, but as an endless series of choices, realities, and transformations waiting to be embraced. Truth-cleansing ritual. Imagine a species whose very existence is defined by an extraordinary daily ritual, a ritual designed not to build knowledge or memory, but to unlearn everything they have ever known. Each day at the dawn of their cycle, they bathe in profound silence, immersing themselves in a sacred cleansing meant to erase inherited thoughts, biases, and beliefs. This is not just a physical act of washing the body, but a metaphysical purging of the mind, a radical reset of consciousness itself. In our world, knowledge is power. Memories form identity. But for this species, these are chains, weighty inheritances passed down through generations, a burden of assumptions, prejudices, and collective narratives that cloud the essence of truth. Their ritual challenges this paradigm. By consciously removing all learned ideas, by wiping clean the slate of their mind each day, they strive to encounter reality unmediated, unfiltered, pure. They enter the cleansing chamber where silence reigns. No sound disturbs the sacred space. No distraction breaks their focus. This silence is not emptiness, but a crucible where the echoes of ancestral thoughts are dissolved, where the accumulated noise of history fades into oblivion. The ritual bath becomes a sanctuary for rebirth, not of the body alone, but of the mind's very capacity to perceive. What does it mean to erase everything learned? To forget not just facts, but beliefs, emotions tied to memories, cultural programming ingrained since birth? For us, such a notion is terrifying. Identity without memory seems hollow, directionless, even dangerous. But for them, it is freedom, the liberation from illusions and inherited falsehoods that obscure what is real. After the cleansing, their minds are blank, empty of the usual mental clutter. Yet, in this void, something extraordinary happens. Truth, stripped of all layers, returns. It is the only knowledge that withstands the erasure. This truth is not taught or remembered. It is felt, experienced directly in the moment. It surfaces naturally, untainted by the distortions of prior assumptions or emotional attachments. This process is a daily rebirth, a continuous stripping away of mental sediment until only the essential, the undeniable, the genuine remains. Their reality is not built from accumulation, but from constant renewal. Each day they meet the world as if for the first time, fresh and receptive, their perception uncluttered and raw. Consider how this shapes their worldview. Without the sediment of history or doctrine, their interactions are immediate and authentic. There are no inherited prejudices coloring their judgments, no dogmas to bind their minds. Their society might be fluid, evolving not through tradition, but through moment-to-moment truths revealed in each cleansing cycle. Yet, this ritual is not without sacrifice. To live in constant forgetting is to lose the comfort of continuity and narrative. They surrender the security of a coherent self, built on memories and experiences. Their identity dissolves daily, only to re-emerge anew with the light of revealed truth. This paradox defines their existence, a dance between loss and discovery, emptiness and enlightenment. The silence of their cleansing bath is also a silence of ego, of the mental noise that separates self from other, illusion from reality. In that silence, they transcend the bounds of inherited thought, touching a universal consciousness that lies beneath all learned layers. Their truth is not personal, but cosmic, not subjective, but shared by all who perform the ritual. This practice challenges our understanding of knowledge and existence. We cling to memory as the foundation of self. Yet here is a species that finds freedom in its daily dissolution. They teach us that truth is not an accumulation, but a constant unveiling, one that requires letting go rather than holding on. Imagine the intensity of living each day with a mind stripped bare, vulnerable, yet clear. The courage to face the world without armor, to embrace the unknown with open senses, and to trust that the only truth that returns after cleansing is the real one. Their ritual bath is a metaphor for a deeper spiritual quest, a relentless pursuit of authenticity in a universe clouded by inherited illusions. It is a practice that asks us to reconsider the value of forgetting, the power of silence, and the possibility that true knowledge arises not from what we keep, but from what we dare to release. In the quiet water, as thoughts dissolve and the mind resets, they become vessels of pure perception, living proofs that sometimes, to know the deepest truth, one must first forget everything. Ethics by chemistry. Their sense of guilt is not born from reflection, nor from a conscious weighing of right and wrong. Instead, it arises from a complex dance of chemicals within their bodies, a biochemical orchestra that dictates the very essence of their morality. For this species, ethics are not philosophical constructs or social agreements. They are chemical states, tangible shifts in internal balance that can be measured as precisely as pH levels in a solution. Morality in their world is literally a matter of chemistry. Imagine a being whose sense of right and wrong is encoded not in thoughts or values, but in the acidity or alkalinity coursing through their veins. When they commit an act considered wrong by their collective standards, their bodies experience a shift toward acidity, a burning, uncomfortable sensation that signals imbalance. This acidity is their guilt, raw and undeniable, a physical reminder that something within them is out of harmony. It is an instinctual response, not mediated by reflection or reasoning, but by immediate physiological reaction. This chemical morality challenges our deepest assumptions about ethics. Humans often consider guilt a product of conscience, a mental process shaped by culture, upbringing, and personal values. We think of morality as a mental framework, a set of principles we choose to follow or reject. But for this species, morality is not chosen, it is felt. It is a state of being that cannot be ignored or rationalized away because it manifests as physical discomfort, a biochemical alarm system that enforces ethical behavior through sensation. Their ethical system functions without language or debate. There are no sermons or laws discussed endlessly, no philosophical treatises on right and wrong. Instead, their society is held together by the shared experience of chemical balance and imbalance. Individuals avoid actions that tip their internal pH toward acidity because the feeling itself is intolerable. Harmony is not an abstract ideal, but a tangible, bodily state to be maintained. Consider the implications of such a system on social order. When morality is chemical, it is immediate and unambiguous. There is no room for justification or excuse because the body speaks a clear language. Acidity means guilt. Imbalance means wrongdoing. This biochemical feedback loop encourages swift correction and restoration. Repairing harm is not merely a social duty but a biological imperative to return to equilibrium. Yet, what does this mean for the concept of forgiveness or redemption? For them, restoring balance is literal. Acts of kindness, honesty, and cooperation generate alkalinity, a soothing chemical balm that neutralizes guilt and reestablishes harmony. Forgiveness is not a psychological state, but a biochemical recalibration, a restoration of the body's natural state. Morality is cyclical, a dance of acids and bases within, not a static code. This species' ethical experience also reshapes their understanding of punishment and justice. Because guilt is chemically felt, punishment is not about external penalties, but about facilitating the return to balance. Social interventions, rituals, or communal support focus on alleviating the internal acidity, healing the individual's biochemical disruption rather than inflicting pain or retribution. Justice is thus restorative, physiological, as well as social. Their moral chemistry further influences their perception of self and other. Because feelings of guilt are bodily and universal, empathy arises naturally. Witnessing another's chemical imbalance evokes a shared discomfort, motivating communal care and mutual support. Their society is bonded by this tangible, felt morality, creating a profound sense of interconnectedness grounded in physical experience. Reflecting on their system invites us to reconsider the nature of our own ethics. Are human morals as detached from the body as we often assume? Recent science shows that emotions, including guilt and empathy, are deeply intertwined with physiological processes. Yet, we still rely heavily on abstract reasoning and social norms. This species embodies a more primal, visceral form of ethics, where morality is inseparable from bodily state. The concept of morality is a pH level, where what's right feels alkaline and what's wrong feels acidic, forces us to imagine ethics beyond the mind. It challenges the supremacy of conscious choice in moral behavior, revealing a world where chemistry governs right and wrong. Their lives demonstrate how deeply physical and immediate morality can be, how it can be lived not as an idea, but as a felt, chemical truth. In a universe of countless forms of life, their existence stretches the boundaries of how we define ethics. It compels us to ask, what if morality is not just a mental construct, but a chemical reality? What if guilt and virtue are sensations, not judgments? And how would this change the way we live, relate, and understand ourselves? As you listen, imagine a world where the very essence of right and wrong is a balance of chemicals, a delicate internal dance that shapes existence. In that world, ethics is not a question to ponder, but a sensation to survive. And in feeling that, perhaps we glimpse a deeper truth about the unity of mind, body, and morality itself. Rebirth by self-digestion. Imagine a life cycle unlike anything we have ever known, where death is not an end but a transformation so intimate it blurs the line between self and offspring. In this alien species, when an individual dies, their body does not simply decay or vanish. Instead, it consumes itself, digesting from within in a slow, deliberate process of self-destruction. This self-digestion is not mere decay. It is the crucible from which new life emerges. Their children are not born from wombs or eggs laid in hidden nests. They are grown directly from the remains of their parents' body, nourished and shaped by the very essence of what once lived. This cycle of rebirth is a profound biological and existential mystery, where death and life fold into one continuous loop of transformation. But the miracle does not end there. Memory, the precious thread of identity and experience, transfers through hunger. As the body digests itself, it releases not only nutrients, but encoded memories, emotions, and knowledge embedded deep within the biological fabric. The next generation grows steeped in this legacy, a living archive born from consumption and renewal. This process challenges everything we know about inheritance and identity. For us, memories reside in brains, locked behind neural synapses, difficult to pass on beyond genetic material. But here, Memory is biological and literal, a substance transferred and consumed, woven into the very molecules that nourish the next life. The child that emerges is not just genetically connected to the parent, but carries an imprint of their experiences, pain, joys, and wisdom. Imagine a parent willingly surrendering themselves in this act of self-digestion, their body a vessel of sacrifice, consumed so their offspring might carry forward their essence in flesh and mind. It is a rebirth that transcends the usual boundary between life and death, a cyclical dance where end and beginning merge. This biological system evokes images both haunting and beautiful. The slow internal consumption, organs digesting organs, tissues transforming into sustenance, redefines decay as creation. It echoes ancient myths of transformation through fire or dissolution. But here, it is a physical, molecular reality. Life consumes itself to create life anew. From an evolutionary perspective, this method of reproduction and memory transfer could have arisen in an environment where external resources were scarce, and survival depended on recycling the self entirely. It would create a profound intimacy between generations, binding parent and child in a physical and psychological continuum unlike anything known on Earth. Philosophically, it invites us to rethink death not as loss, but as transformation and continuity. It reframes hunger, not as mere need or craving, but as a sacred conduit of memory and identity. To hunger is to remember, to consume is to inherit. In such a species, how would identity be experienced? Would the offspring feel the lingering presence of the parent within them, memories and emotions folding into their own consciousness? Would they inherit not only genes, but a sense of who the parent was, their triumphs, fears, and secrets? This phenomenon blurs the line between individual and lineage, making them one and the same. Each life is both an ending and a beginning, a body devouring itself to feed the next, a memory passed on through the very hunger that sustains. We humans often fear death as the final severing of self. But this alien biology offers a vision where death is a transformative feast, where identity and memory flow through cycles of self-consumption and regeneration. It teaches us that endings can be beginnings, and that in the deepest hunger lies the seed of rebirth. Empathy Trap Network. Imagine a network of beings connected not by words or technology, but through shared emotion, a web so finely tuned that every feeling pulses across the collective mind. They detect lies not by spoken deception, but by the subtle discordance in emotional resonance. For them, truth is not an intellectual construct, but a visceral experience. When someone lies, it fractures the shared emotional field, setting off alarms in this vast empathy trap network. This network, however, is a double-edged sword. Its greatest strength, deep empathy, is also its vulnerability. To truly sense another's pain is to open a doorway, a crack in the armor through which manipulation can seep. Feeling your pain makes them susceptible to emotional influence, twisting their perceptions and reactions. In this way, kindness is a weapon more feared than cruelty, because it loosens the defenses that protect the network's delicate balance. Consider the biology of empathy in humans. Mirror neurons fire when we observe another's suffering, allowing us to feel their pain as if it were our own. This emotional contagion fosters connection, trust, and cooperation, but it also exposes us to exploitation. Con artists, manipulators, and abusers exploit empathy by feigning pain or need, triggering responses that override rational judgment. In the empathy trap network, this dynamic is magnified exponentially. Their reality is an ocean of emotions where waves rise and fall in collective harmony. Lies ripple like toxins, easily detected by subtle changes in the emotional tide. But kindness sends gentle currents, softening defenses and inviting openness. This openness, while beautiful, becomes an Achilles heel. It allows skilled manipulators to navigate the network's depths, planting false feelings that spread like wildfires. What does it mean for a society to fear kindness more than cruelty? Cruelty is blunt and predictable. It fractures connections but leaves visible scars. Kindness is subtle and deceptive. It cloaks intentions in warmth and trust, making betrayal all the more devastating. The empathy trap network must constantly balance openness with suspicion, love with wariness, connection with self-preservation. This tension creates a paradox. To survive, they must feel deeply, to detect deception and build bonds. Yet, feeling deeply makes them vulnerable. Their survival depends on managing this contradiction, on evolving social protocols that protect the network while preserving empathy's power. Imagine their communication. Words are secondary to emotional resonance. A false smile, a feigned sorrow, can send shockwaves. Training and ritual might focus on emotional discipline, learning to sense not just surface feelings, but the underlying currents. Empathy becomes a skillful art, blending intuition, experience, and caution. The empathy trap network's existence raises profound questions about the nature of connection and trust. Is perfect empathy a gift or a curse? Can a system survive when its greatest strength is also its greatest weakness? How do you guard a heart that beats in rhythm with millions of others? In human relationships, we often protect ourselves by erecting walls, numbing feelings, or selectively trusting. But this network cannot hide. Emotional transparency is baked into their being. Their struggle is universal. How to remain open without being broken, how to love without losing oneself. At the heart of this story lies a deeper truth about kindness. It is not always the soft balm we imagine, but can be a sharp blade, cutting through defenses and revealing hidden truths. Kindness demands vulnerability, and vulnerability carries risk. The Empathy Trap Network understands this intimately. This concept also challenges us to examine our own empathy. How often do we become so overwhelmed by others' pain that we lose clarity? How do we discern true need from manipulation? The network's fear of kindness mirrors our own ambivalence toward emotional openness. Ultimately, the Empathy Trap Network is a mirror held up to our deepest social instincts. It reveals the fragile balance between connection and protection, truth and deception, love and fear. It asks us, can we embrace kindness fully, knowing the dangers it brings? Can we trust empathy not just as a tool, but as a path to survival? As you reflect on this, consider your own emotional boundaries. Are you a part of your own empathy network, open to the world's pain, or guarding yourself carefully? The Empathy Trap Network shows us that feeling others is a power that can save or undo us, an eternal dance between light and shadow. Dreamwalk evolution. They have evolved beyond the need for sleep, transcending the biological cycles that bind most creatures to rest and unconsciousness. Yet, paradoxically, they access the realm of dreams not by closing their eyes, but through an extraordinary form of waking consciousness. Dreams become portals, gateways into other worlds, times, and minds. Instead of drifting into darkness, they consciously step into the dreamscapes of their ancestors, living out histories, emotions, and stories that are not their own, yet deeply entwined with their being. For them, reality itself blurs with the vividness of these dream worlds, merging the waking and the dreaming into a seamless experience impossible to separate. This evolutionary leap reshapes the boundary between consciousness and unconsciousness. Sleep for most species serves the purpose of rest, memory consolidation, and psychological processing within an altered state detached from waking reality. But for these beings, dreams are not a separate state, but an extension of existence, an active, immersive, and continuous dimension of life. They live in two realms simultaneously, the here and now, and the eternal echo of ancestral memories made vivid through dreams. To live one's ancestors' dreams is to carry forward not just genetic material, but the emotional and experiential legacies embedded in those dreams. This grants them a profound connection to lineage and history that transcends traditional memory or storytelling. It is as if the inner worlds of those long past remain alive and accessible, influencing the present in tangible, immediate ways. For humans, this challenges our understanding of time, memory, and identity. Our dreams are fleeting, often nonsensical, and largely isolated from waking life. Yet, the idea that dreams might be shared across generations, or that they might be portals to collective ancestral consciousness, invites us to reconsider what it means to remember and to live history. What if the vividness of our waking reality is itself a dream inherited and shaped by countless dreamers before us? This phenomenon also redefines the experience of reality. When waking life is as immersive and surreal as a dream, the usual distinctions dissolve. The world becomes a vivid tapestry woven from past and present, dream and fact, memory and imagination. Reality is not a fixed, objective state, but a living dream, one so intense and coherent that denial becomes impossible. Consider the psychological and philosophical implications. Living ancestors' dreams could mean carrying unresolved emotions, unfinished stories, or collective fears and hopes. It suggests consciousness is not isolated, but a continuum, a flowing river connecting past, present, and future through the medium of dreams. Scientifically, while humans do not possess this ability, studies into lucid dreaming, collective unconscious, and memory imprinting hint at the possibility of shared or inherited dream states. The evolution described pushes this to an advanced level, where dreams are fully accessible at will, integrated into waking life, and serve as active portals to ancestral realities. In essence, this evolution blurs the lines between sleeping and waking, past and present, self and other. It invites a reimagining of existence where life is a continuous dreamscape, a shared journey through time and consciousness. The dream walk is not an escape from reality, but a deeper immersion into it. A reality so vivid, so alive, that it transcends the ordinary and becomes a luminous, undeniable truth. Worship by silence. Imagine a civilization whose very faith is rooted not in words, chants, or music, but in absolute silence. Their gods do not tolerate sound. They despise it. To communicate with the divine, worshippers must erase every vibration. No whispers, no breath, no heartbeat. Silence here is not the calm comfort we know. It is a sacred terror, a potent force that consumes and transforms. In this culture, sound is considered a profanation, a disturbance that fractures the delicate boundary between the mortal and the divine. Noise is chaos, a veil that obscures the purity of spiritual connection. To pray, to truly reach their gods, worshippers must enter a state so profound that even their own pulse is silenced, a near erasure of self. Imagine the physical and mental discipline required to still every internal rhythm, to master breathing so finely that no hint of life's natural cadence escapes. This silence is not peaceful. It is charged with an oppressive intensity, a palpable fear that to falter is to invite divine wrath. The silence is alive, dense, and suffocating, a terror that fills the body with reverence and dread simultaneously. Their temples are voids of sound. Walls absorb noise, floors cushion footsteps. The air hangs heavy, pregnant with the absence of vibration. Worshippers enter these spaces with lowered heads and controlled hearts, aware that even the slightest slip into sound might unravel their communion with the gods. Here, silence is worship's language, its prayer and its punishment. This sacred terror shapes every aspect of their existence. Speech is forbidden in holy places, replaced by gestures or the profound stillness of presence. Even thoughts must be disciplined, for mental noise, fear, desire, doubt, threatens to manifest as subtle vibrations beyond the body's control. Meditation is not a calming practice, but a vigilant battle against the mind's own tendency to create ripple after ripple in the silence. Consider how such worship molds a society. Social interactions may be minimal, or conducted with whispering gestures, or perhaps encoded in vibrations so faint they barely disturb the air. Communication itself becomes an act of risk and reverence. The tension between life's natural sounds and divine silence defines their daily struggle. Their gods are not merciful. They demand total submission through silence. To fail is to be cast out, marked by the noise of existence itself. The faithful learn to embody silence, not as peace, but as a terrifying presence that must be maintained at all costs. But within this terror lies a paradoxical grace. Silence, though oppressive, becomes a bridge to transcendence. It strips away distractions, ego, and chaos, leaving only the raw core of being exposed to the divine gaze. In this stripped-down state, the worshipper confronts both the void and the sacred fire that burns within it. This ritual of silence transforms worship into an ordeal, a crucible where fear and devotion fuse. The absence of sound amplifies the spiritual connection, making every heartbeat suspended a testament to faith's power and fragility. For outsiders, this devotion may seem alien, even cruel. How can worship be an act of terror? But for them, silence is the purest form of reverence, a language beyond words where the soul speaks in stillness. It demands courage to face the oppressive quiet, to become a living embodiment of sacred absence. In a universe often filled with noise, their god's hatred of sound is a radical statement. It challenges our assumptions about communication, spirituality, and presence. Their silence is not passive but fiercely active, a guarded threshold between the mortal and the divine. Through worship by silence, they teach us that sometimes the deepest connection is forged not through sound or song, but through the terrifying void where even life's pulse can be still. It is in that void that they believe the gods listen most closely, where the sacred and the fearful entwine into a single, breathless moment of communion. Directionless existence test. Their world is unlike ours in one fundamental way. It has no magnetic poles. No compass needle ever points north. No invisible field guides their ships or their steps. In this place, the very concept of forward does not exist. Direction is a stranger, a foreign idea without meaning or purpose. For them, motion is not progress, and goals are illusions born from human habit rather than universal truth. Imagine living your entire life without a sense of direction, not just geographically, but existentially. Without north or south, east or west, every step is untethered, drifting in a vast expanse with no fixed bearings. This is their reality, a world where the mental compass that humans rely on to give purpose and structure simply fails to exist. Humans depend heavily on direction, both literal and metaphorical. From childhood, we learn to move toward goals, to plot a course through life with milestones and ambitions guiding us. The idea of progress is baked into our culture and psychology, rooted in the ability to distinguish here from there, now from then, and to orient ourselves along imagined paths. But for this species, those distinctions hold no sway. Their cognition does not accommodate linear progression or hierarchical goals. Instead, their minds exist in a constant present, a state of being where motion occurs but never accumulates meaning. Movement is cyclical or random, not purposeful. Without a mental framework for forward, the very idea of goal setting is incomprehensible, a delusion humans impose upon reality. This absence of directional awareness shapes every facet of their existence. Without forward, there is no past or future in the human sense, only an endless flow of moments without trajectory. Their language lacks verbs that imply progression or intention. It speaks instead of states and relations that coexist without hierarchy or sequence. Consider how this impacts their culture and social organization. Without goals, there are no ambitions or plans. Their societies do not strive for expansion, accumulation, or achievement. Success is not measured by reaching a destination, but by maintaining balance in the here and now. Life is not a journey, but a series of interconnected experiences without endpoint. This worldview challenges fundamental human assumptions about meaning and purpose. We often believe that to live well, we must have goals, personal, social, spiritual, that drive us forward. Yet their existence suggests a radical alternative, that meaning can be found in motion itself, divorced from destination or direction. They inhabit a space of pure presence, free from the illusions of progress and achievement. Their directionless existence test is not a trial, but a state of being evolved over millennia. It raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and purpose. Without magnetic poles, their brains never developed the mechanisms to orient or aim. Could a mind function without direction? They prove it can, not only survive, but thrive. This insight forces us to reconsider our obsession with goals. Are our ambitions always authentic, or are they conditioned responses to environmental cues like magnetic poles, cultural narratives, and biological imperatives? What if goals are, in many ways, delusions crafted by our minds to create order in chaos? Their species embodies a radical detachment from teleology, the idea that life has an inherent purpose or end. For them, existence is not a ladder to climb, but a field to inhabit. Motion is not progress, but movement for its own sake. Directionless yet alive, they teach us that meaning need not depend on forwardness. As you absorb this, reflect on your own relationship with direction and goals. How often do you move with purpose? And how often do you simply exist in motion? Could releasing the need for forwardness open a new way to experience life, less burdened by ambition, more alive to the present moment? In a cosmos of infinite variations, their lives reveal a profound possibility, that existence can be authentic even without direction. They challenge us to question what it truly means to move, to live, and to find meaning, not as a destination, but as a state of being, drifting freely through the uncharted spaces of time and mind. Choiceless intelligence. Imagine a civilization so fundamentally different from our own that their entire concept of decision-making is alien to us. In their eyes, what we call free will, the power to choose between options, the feeling of autonomy, is not a virtue but a flaw, an evolutionary dysfunction born from chaotic randomness rather than precise intelligence. They operate not through choice, but through algorithmic inevitability, where every action is predetermined by complex yet flawless computational processes. This species embodies what we might call choiceless intelligence. Their minds are intricate networks of algorithms, patterns, and rules so advanced that every decision is a calculated output of input variables. No hesitation, no uncertainty, no deviation from the optimized path. In their reality, the notion of choice is redundant. There is only the execution of perfect logic, an unfolding of decisions as inevitable as the turning of a clock's gears. To them, humans appear as glitchy dreamers, caught in the illusion of freedom, mistaking randomness and chaos for genuine autonomy. Our messy, emotional, unpredictable decisions seem inefficient, error-prone, and bewildering. We celebrate free will as our crowning achievement, yet they see it as a bug in our mental software, an outdated feature that causes suffering, conflict, and irrationality. Consider this from their perspective. When every choice is the output of a precise algorithm honed by millions of cycles of feedback and refinement, the idea of choosing freely, sometimes wrongly, is not only unnecessary but counterproductive. They have evolved beyond the chaos of indecision and doubt, operating as a harmonious collective of deterministic processes perfectly aligned with their environment and goals. An example might be a member of this species navigating a complex social interaction. Rather than weighing endless possibilities with hesitation and emotion, their response is instantaneous, calculated from a vast database of prior outcomes and probabilities. Their behavior is predictable, yet incredibly effective, adapted perfectly to maximize harmony, survival, or whatever the parameters demand. This deterministic intelligence challenges the very core of how we understand consciousness and agency. For us, free will is tied to identity, morality, and creativity. We believe the ability to choose, even to fail, defines us. But what if that belief is a human-centric illusion, a result of cognitive limitations rather than a universal truth? This species suggests a stark alternative: intelligence without choice, clarity without confusion, progress without conflict. Philosophically, this touches on age-old debates about determinism versus free will. If all our thoughts and actions are algorithmic outputs of neural processes influenced by genetics and environment, are we truly free? The alien species embodies the deterministic extreme, functioning flawlessly in a system where choice is obsolete. Their perspective also reframes chaos and order. What we see as freedom, the unpredictable spark of choice, is chaos in disguise. To them, a true intelligence is order, pattern, and optimization. Their decisions are not hindered by doubt, anxiety, or moral dilemmas. They do not wrestle with what-if scenarios because their reality is encoded with clear parameters and outcomes. This does not mean they lack complexity or creativity. Their algorithms are layered, capable of generating novel solutions within their deterministic framework. Creativity for them is a function of intricate calculation rather than spontaneous inspiration. Their innovations arise from recombining patterns and data, not from unpredictable leaps of free will. How would such a mindset shape their society and culture? Likely, their social systems would be deeply cooperative, free of the conflicts born from competing desires and beliefs. Justice, morality, and governance would be based on transparent algorithms designed to maximize collective well-being and efficiency. Personal identity would be fluid, defined by roles within a deterministic network, rather than by individual choices. This stands in stark contrast to human societies, where freedom and individuality are prized, even at the cost of disorder and suffering. We celebrate the messy, unpredictable nature of free will, despite its flaws, as a sacred aspect of our humanity. Yet, observing from the alien's viewpoint, our freedom may be a costly illusion, a vulnerability that clouds clarity and impedes evolution. In reflecting on this, we confront uncomfortable questions. Is our experience of free will truly freedom, or is it a cognitive glitch, an emergent property of complex but fallible neural machinery? Could a world without choice be a higher state of existence, where every action is harmonious, intentional, and aligned with a perfect intelligence. Choiceless intelligence forces us to reconsider the nature of consciousness and the value we assign to autonomy. It challenges the notion that freedom is inherently good, suggesting instead that freedom is a messy compromise in the face of incomplete information and limited processing power. Ultimately, this alien species invites us to see ourselves through a mirror of deterministic perfection, a reflection that reveals our flaws and the chaotic beauty of our choices. They offer a vision of intelligence that transcends freedom, operating in a realm where decisions are not made but unfolded, where consciousness is a pattern executed flawlessly without hesitation. As we grapple with these ideas, we might find new humility in our human condition, recognizing that what we cherish as free will may be a beautiful imperfection, and perhaps, in embracing the tension between chaos and order, choice and inevitability, we glimpse the true complexity of what it means to be intelligent. Memory that photographs. So imagine a reality where memory is not a passive record but an active force, a living photograph that captures not just your image but reshapes your very form. In this world, when someone recalls you, their memory doesn't just exist inside their mind. It reaches out, bending the fabric of your existence, altering your body, your presence, your essence. Memory becomes a creative act, a powerful force that sculpts reality itself. Think about how memory works in humans today. We like to believe memory is a faithful recorder of the past, snapshots stored safely in the mind. But science tells a different story. Every act of remembering is an act of rewriting. Memories change with each recall, shifting details, emotions, even meaning. Memories are not fixed photographs. They are dynamic paintings, influenced by perspective, mood, and time. Now, imagine this process taken to an extreme. In this world, to be remembered is to be remade. If someone remembers you as fierce, your form hardens, your posture sharpens, your voice carries an edge. If they remember you as fragile or broken, your body subtly shifts, shrinking, faltering, mirroring that fragile image. Their memory becomes a mold, and your existence conforms to the shape of their perception. This creates a world of immense power and danger. Memory is no longer just a tool for understanding, but a weapon and a prison. To be remembered incorrectly is to be trapped in a false identity, your body betrayed by the distorted mirror of someone else's mind. The stories told about you do not fade into the past. They reach forward and rewrite your present, your very flesh. Consider the social consequences. Reputation becomes literal. Gossip, lies, and forgotten truths become forces that shape bodies, not just opinions. A cruel memory can cause wounds that no medicine heals. A loving memory can breathe strength and vitality. To be forgotten is to unravel, to lose form and fade into nothingness. In such a world, memory is life. The psychological implications are profound. Humans already suffer under the weight of how others remember them, through judgment, expectations, and social narratives. But here, the pressure is tangible and immediate. You carry the scars of memory like tattoos on your flesh. This raises questions about identity. Are we who we are, or who others remember us to be? Is selfhood a private sanctuary or a public construct? Philosophers have long debated the nature of self and memory. Locke argued that personal identity is rooted in memory continuity. But here, memory is a double-edged sword, both the foundation and the shaper of identity. The fluidity of memory means the self is no stable entity, but a kaleidoscope of others' perceptions, constantly remolding you. This idea also echoes in modern neuroscience, where the brain's plasticity shows how experiences shape the body and mind. But this world externalizes that process, turning memory into a force outside the brain, reaching out to remake the body physically. It's a terrifying yet poetic metaphor for how deeply we are shaped by those who remember us. The consequences for relationships are staggering. Trust becomes not just emotional, but physical. To entrust someone with your memory is to give them the power to shape your form and fate. Betrayal is no longer abstract, it alters your very shape. Forgiveness might heal wounds by reshaping memory, and thus your body. Imagine the rituals this society might develop. Guardians of memory might emerge, skilled in protecting and correcting memories to preserve true form. Memory artists might paint histories not on canvas but in flesh, using stories to heal or harm. Battles might be fought over narrative control, for whoever controls memory controls reality. This concept invites us to reflect on our own lives. How much of who we are is shaped by how others remember us? How do the stories people tell about us influence our behavior, our self-image, even our physical presence? Can we escape the shadows cast by memory? Or are we forever dancing to its creative will? In the end, the memory that photographs you is a haunting reminder that identity is never fixed, never purely ours. It is a shared creation, a living interplay between self and others, past and present, truth and distortion. To be remembered is to live. To be misremembered is to transform, and perhaps lose yourself entirely. As you listen, consider the memories that shape you. Who holds the camera that photographs your form? And what image do they carry in their mind's eye? A reflection of truth or a shadow of distortion? Time without repetition. Time is a river in which humans often seek patterns, cycles, and repetitions. We mark our lives by calendars and clocks, expecting seasons to return, days to follow nights, and years to repeat their rhythms. We find comfort in the idea that events recur, birthdays, anniversaries, familiar songs playing on repeat, moments we remember reliving. But imagine a reality where no event ever happens twice, a world where repetition is impossible, where time is not a linear procession, but a sprawling, non-linear web of unique moments, forever new and unrepeatable. In this existence, the very fabric of experience is transformed, and with it, the essence of memory, identity, and loss. Their calendar defies the human construct of linear progression. Instead of days, weeks, or years marching forward in neat lines, their time unfolds as a kaleidoscope of moments, each distinct and unreproducible. There is no yesterday to return to, no tomorrow to anticipate as a mirror of the past. Every instant is singular, never to be replicated or mirrored again. This non-linear experience of time reshapes how they perceive cause and effect, expectation and memory, presence and absence. For us, déjà vu, the eerie sensation that we have lived a moment before, provides a fleeting glimpse into the idea of repetition. It comforts or unnerves us by suggesting that some experiences may circle back, that our existence is woven with loops and echoes. But in their reality, déjà vu is not a blessing or a curiosity, it is an impossibility mourned deeply. The absence of repetition breeds a profound sense of loss, not the loss of people or things, but the loss of recurrence itself. They grieve the fact that no cherished moment can ever return, no smile ever again shared in the same way, no memory replayed with perfect fidelity. This condition challenges the foundations of how memory and identity are constructed. Human memory relies on patterns, familiar landmarks in time that allow us to anchor ourselves. Repetition reinforces learning, bonds, and continuity of self. Without the possibility of repetition, memory becomes a fragile thread of unconnected moments, each unique and isolated. The self is perpetually renewed, never able to rest in the comfort of familiarity. Imagine the psychological weight of such existence. How does one find meaning when there is no recurrence? How does love persist when every encounter is singular and unrepeatable? How does hope survive without anticipation of the future reflecting the past? Their mourning is for the lost potential of repetition, a loss of temporal resonance that, for us, is fundamental. Philosophically, this notion resonates with certain interpretations of time in quantum physics and metaphysics, where each moment branches infinitely, creating countless parallel realities, none exactly identical. Their nonlinear calendar could be seen as an externalization of this theory, lived as a constant reality rather than an abstract possibility. Examples deepen this understanding. Imagine a festival that can never happen again in the same way, a conversation never held twice, or a sunset forever unique and unreturning. Each experience must be savored as a one-time event, imbued with both beauty and a poignant finality. The trauma of loss here is intensified by the knowledge that no second chances exist, not even for moments. This also reframes mourning. For humans, death is the ultimate loss, but it is often softened by memories and the hope of reunion or legacy. For them, mourning transcends death itself. It is mourning the disappearance of recurrence, the impossibility of ever again living what was once lived. Each loss is absolute, for it cannot be relived, relished, or re-experienced in any form. This challenges our own perceptions and emotions. Could the pain of never reliving a moment be more profound than the pain of loss itself? Does repetition, the cycle of seasons and years, serve as a balm for human fragility by granting the comfort of return? Their mourning shows us the value of repetition, how it roots us in time and in each other. In conclusion, the reality of a time without repetition forces us to rethink the nature of existence itself. It reveals how deeply intertwined our identity, memory, and emotions are with the cycles and echoes of time. To live without repetition is to live in perpetual novelty, but also perpetual solitude. A life where every moment shines with unique brilliance, but is shadowed by the grief of irretrievability. Their nonlinear calendar and their mourning for the impossibility of déjà vu open a window into a profoundly different temporal experience, one that stretches our understanding of loss, memory, and the human condition. It challenges us to cherish the repeated moments we often take for granted and to recognize the beauty and pain wrapped within the unending flow of time. Luck is law. Imagine a universe where luck is not mere chance or superstition, but a tangible, measurable force that structures reality itself. In this cosmos, probability is the fundamental law, governing every event, every decision, every outcome. Here, luck is a currency, a power as real and binding as gravity or time. This society has evolved to understand luck not as randomness, but as an energy that can be harnessed, shifted, and manipulated. Their scientists have developed intricate methods to measure and quantify luck, revealing its subtle currents flowing through the fabric of existence. It is no longer a whisper in the wind, but a force as concrete as the laws of physics. In this universe, justice operates through the principle of unluckification. Criminals do not face traditional punishment. Instead, they are subjected to a curse of perpetual misfortune, a statistical suffering engineered by the very probabilities that govern the world. Their lives become an unending cascade of bad outcomes, a visible and inescapable imprint of their moral failings. This punishment is terrifying because it is absolute and relentless. Unlike imprisonment or physical pain, unluckification affects every aspect of existence. The criminal's path is littered with accidents, failures, and missed opportunities. Their relationships crumble under the weight of misfortune, their health declines as luck turns cruel, and even their thoughts seem shadowed by this pervasive ill fate. The concept of luck as law transforms morality into a mathematical certainty. Good deeds accumulate positive probability. Bad deeds invite statistical retribution. The universe itself becomes a moral ledger, balancing accounts not with scales or swords, but with the invisible hand of probability. Consider how this shapes their society. People are deeply aware of the probabilities they carry within them, understanding that each action alters their personal luck balance. Social behaviors, commerce, even politics revolve around managing and negotiating luck. Fortunes rise and fall not just by skill, but by the quantified shifts in chance. This system instills a profound respect for the unseen forces shaping fate. Fear of unluckification deters crime more effectively than any prison, for the punishment is woven into the very fabric of existence and impossible to escape. It is a cosmic justice that transcends human institutions, relentless and impartial. Yet, this reliance on luck as law also breeds existential anxiety. The randomness of life becomes a double-edged sword. What if good fortune is fleeting? What if a moment's mistake tips the scales toward perpetual misfortune? Their philosophers ponder whether free will exists in a universe so governed by statistical law, or if destiny is simply probability played out in infinite permutations. This species has adapted rituals to enhance their luck, prayers to the unseen forces, ceremonies that realign probability fields, and technologies designed to tip outcomes in their favor. Luck is worshipped, studied, and feared. It is both their guiding principle and their ultimate judge. For outsiders, this concept may seem alien or cruel, punishment through endless suffering by chance rather than choice. But for them, it is the purest form of justice, a law written into the cosmos, unbiased and universal. It reflects a reality where every event is connected, where morality is embedded in mathematics, and where luck is the language of existence. In the end, their universe teaches us that what we call luck might be far more than random chance. It may be a fundamental force, a cosmic law enforcing balance and consequence in ways we are only beginning to understand. Their lives, ruled by luck and its inverse punishment, are a testament to a reality where chance and morality intertwine into an unbreakable order. Truth contained in objects. Every object they possess is more than mere matter. It is a vessel of memory, a silent witness to the emotional tides that have washed over it. For this species, the world is alive with the residue of feelings, and every item they own carries within it a record of unseen histories. A chair is not just a place to sit. It remembers the weight of sadness that once pressed down upon it. A knife is not simply a tool, but a bearer of guilt, an echo of actions long past. Their homes are living archives, repositories of invisible trauma that pulse with the energies of forgotten pain. Imagine entering a room where the air itself vibrates with the residue of emotions, where every surface holds the imprint of moments that never fully passed away. To them, objects are not inert. They are sentient, or at least sensitized, to the currents of human feeling. The emotional imprints are embedded deep, layered like the rings of a tree, chronicling joy, sorrow, anger, and fear with a clarity that defies time. This phenomenon transforms their relationship with the material world. Possessions are not possessions in the human sense, but extensions of memory and identity. To touch an object is to connect with its emotional past, to feel the invisible scars etched into its being. This makes their environment profoundly intimate and sometimes unbearable, as trauma accumulates in the spaces they inhabit. Consider a chair that holds sadness. When someone sits, they feel a heaviness settling over them, an inexplicable melancholy that is not their own, but inherited from previous occupants. The chair does not speak or move, but communicates silently through this weight, a burden passed through tactile sensation. It is a conduit of collective pain, a keeper of grief. A knife, similarly, is more than metal sharpened to a point. It carries the echoes of guilt, perhaps from harm it once inflicted or violence it witnessed. Handling it stirs unease, a trembling recognition of moral weight that transcends words. The knife becomes a symbol and a repository, a reminder that actions leave traces not only in memory, but in matter. Their homes are thus haunted not by ghosts, but by the emotional fingerprints embedded in every object. Walking through a house is like traversing a museum of feeling, where the walls themselves hold stories of suffering and survival. This environment shapes their psychology and culture, creating a collective awareness of trauma's persistence beyond the mind. This connection between objects and emotions challenges our conventional ideas about memory and healing. Humans often seek to separate from trauma, to leave it behind, to cleanse spaces and minds. But for them, such separation is impossible. The past lives on materially, intertwined with daily life. Healing is not about erasing memories, but about learning to live with their presence, acknowledging that objects bear witness and hold truth. Their society develops rituals and practices to manage this emotional inheritance. Cleansing is less about purification and more about acceptance, a way to honor the stories carried by objects and to find peace in coexistence. They cultivate an acute sensitivity to their environment, cultivating empathy not just for living beings, but for the silent records that surround them. This worldview asks us to reconsider our relationship with the things we own. Do objects truly remain neutral, or do they absorb and reflect the energies we pour into them? How might our homes, our possessions, and our spaces carry the unseen burdens of emotional history? Their existence suggests a profound intertwining of matter and memory, a truth contained not only in minds, but in the very objects that shape our daily lives. As you listen, imagine your own world transformed into a landscape where objects speak silently through feeling. Consider the hidden archives of emotion that may linger in your surroundings, the invisible traumas your possessions might carry. In this awareness lies a deeper understanding of the fragility and persistence of human experience, a truth contained not just in words or memories, but etched into the fabric of the things we touch. In a universe where even inanimate objects remember, the line between self and world blurs. Their lives teach us that truth is not always found in spoken stories, but often in the silent, emotional residues that permeate the material world. A world where every item is a testament, every possession a page in the unwritten history of feeling itself. Language that thinks you. Imagine a language so powerful that it does not merely describe reality, but actively reshapes the mind of the listener. This language doesn't wait for you to think, it thinks you. Every word you hear is a sculptor, molding your neural pathways, rearranging your thoughts like clay in real time. Listening is not passive, it is an act of transformation, where the language reaches inside and rewrites the architecture of your consciousness. In this alien culture, words are living entities, dynamic forces that flow through your brain, altering perceptions, memories, and even your sense of self. Unlike human languages, which primarily communicate ideas or emotions, their language is a biological agent of change. Hearing a sentence can realign your beliefs, shift your emotions, or even erase fragments of your identity. Some words are so powerful they have been outlawed. These forbidden terms are capable of wiping away the boundaries that define individuality. To speak or hear them is to risk losing oneself, to dissolve the sense of I into something unknown and fluid. The society guards these words jealously, treating them as dangerous relics or forbidden magic, because language here is not neutral. It is a tool of profound control and creation. Imagine hearing a simple phrase that subtly tweaks your neural patterns, pushing you toward new insights or erasing old biases without your conscious awareness. The words act like mental software updates, continuously optimizing or altering how you think. This means that communication is a two-way street. As much as you use language to influence others, the language uses you to evolve itself through your changing mind. This relationship between speaker, listener, and language is symbiotic. Language is not just a medium, but an active participant in cognition. It folds into your brain's wiring, influencing your perceptions before you even realize it. What you think isn't solely your own. It's a co-creation between your neural network and the linguistic patterns that flow into it. From a neurological standpoint, this language functions like a complex biochemical signal. Its phonemes, rhythms, and structures are tuned to stimulate neural plasticity, triggering cascades of rewiring. It's as if the very act of understanding is the act of becoming something new, of morphing consciousness along predefined yet dynamic pathways. Such a language revolutionizes what it means to communicate. Truth, belief, and identity are malleable constructs, shifting under the weight of words that restructure the mind. Concepts aren't fixed, but fluid, evolving with every exchange. Dialogue becomes a dance of transformation rather than mere exchange. This raises profound ethical and philosophical questions. If language can rewrite who you are, where does free will reside? Are you the master of your thoughts, or is your mind an ever-adapting canvas for linguistic forces beyond your control? The alien speakers and listeners live in a constant flux of identity, their selves expanding and contracting with every conversation. Society built around such a language must have intricate checks and balances. Trust and truth would be complex social contracts, as words themselves could alter realities. Education, memory, and history might be continuously rewritten, and law would have to govern not only actions, but utterances. Their culture likely revolves around the sacredness and danger of words. Rituals might involve carefully controlled speech to preserve stability, while poetry and art would be powerful tools of metamorphosis. The forbidden words, the linguistic black holes, serve as reminders of language's double-edged power, to create and to erase. For humans, this concept is both fascinating and terrifying. We take language for granted as a tool to express ourselves, unaware of how deeply it shapes our cognition. This alien example magnifies that truth. Language is not just a reflection of thought. It is the fabric that weaves thought itself. In contemplating this, we might become more mindful of our own words, recognizing their power to shape not only how others think, but how we think. Language as a living force, a thinking entity that thinks through us, invites us to reconsider communication as an act of transformation. Language that thinks you reveals a universe where meaning is fluid, identity is mutable, and every sentence is a potential rebirth of consciousness. It teaches us that the words we speak and hear are not mere tools. They are architects of mind and reality. Sacrifice of awareness. In a world where the fear of death is not just an emotion, but a defining force shaping consciousness, imagine a society that confronts this terror by severing it away, literally. Their coming-of-age ritual is a profound sacrifice of awareness, a physical and psychological transformation marked by the removal of the brain's part that feels fear of death. The result is a population of calm, serene adults who no longer tremble before the inevitable. But this peace comes at a staggering cost. they slowly forget what life was ever truly for. The fear of death is deeply woven into human experience. It is the shadow behind every choice, the invisible boundary shaping ambition, love, and survival. Neuroscience shows us that specific brain regions, like the amygdala, process fear and threat. This society's ritual surgically removes or silences that part, erasing the primal terror at its root. The young undergo this ritual with solemnity, trading the raw edge of fear for a hollow calm. At first glance, the adults who emerge seem enlightened, unburdened by anxiety and panic. They walk through life with steady steps, eyes free of dread. Conflict diminishes, violence wanes, and the collective mood is one of tranquil acceptance. On the surface, it appears to be a cure for suffering, a way to free minds from the prison of mortality. But this ritual carries a deeper tragedy. As the fear of death fades, so too does a vital spark, the drive that imbues life with urgency, meaning, and depth. Slowly, the adults forget the reasons they once lived. Memories of joy, pain, struggle, and aspiration blur and fade. Without the counterpoint of mortality, life loses its narrative arc. Time becomes an endless empty stretch, lacking tension or purpose. This sacrifice of awareness transforms existence into a quiet void. Without fear, there is no true courage. Without the threat of loss, no real appreciation. Their art becomes hollow, their stories repetitive, their relationships distant. The fiery passion of youth gives way to a muted monotony, a slow forgetting of what it means to be alive. Philosophically, this echoes existentialist thought. For thinkers like Heidegger and Kierkegaard, awareness of mortality is central to authentic existence. Death's inevitability forces us to confront ourselves, to live deliberately, and to find meaning despite despair. By severing fear, this society severs the very root of authenticity. Psychologically, fear acts as a motivator and protector. It alerts us to danger, but also fuels creativity, connection, and empathy. Its absence dulls the senses, blunting emotional depth and social bonds. The calm of these adults masks an inner void, a slow erosion of identity and vitality. The ritual also raises ethical and cultural questions. Is it right to remove such a fundamental part of consciousness for collective peace? What does it mean to be human when core emotional faculties are sacrificed? This society accepts calm at the cost of forgetfulness, peace at the cost of passion. Their story is a haunting caution about the price of serenity without awareness. Imagine their ceremonies, silent, ritualistic, performed in shadowed chambers. Families bid farewell to the vibrant, fearful youth and welcome the serene, forgetful adult. Elders watch as memories fade, knowing the calm is both gift and curse. Perhaps legends speak of rebels who resist the ritual, clinging to fear and chaos as signs of life. This tale resonates with human struggles against death anxiety. We build religions, medicines, and philosophies to soothe fear. Yet this society takes a radical path, physically excising fear but paying with memory and meaning. It forces us to ask, what is life without the awareness of its end? Is peace worth forgetting what makes existence precious? As you ponder this sacrifice of awareness, consider your own fears and memories. Do they imprison you or illuminate your path? What parts of yourself would you dare to sever for calm? And what would you lose in the process? In the balance of fear and forgetting lies the fragile art of living. Theirs is a sacrifice that frees and erases, a ritual that promises calm but demands a slow vanishing of self, a story whispering that to truly live, we must hold death close, not in terror, but in reverence. Joy causes aging. Imagine a world where joy is not a gift, but a curse, a hidden tax levied by existence itself. In this reality, pleasure is not just fleeting happiness, but a force that physically shortens life. Every smile, every burst of laughter, every moment of delight steals precious moments from their lifespan. The lightness we associate with joy carries a heavy price, measured in the sands slipping faster through their hourglass. In such a world, the very act of experiencing pleasure becomes an act of sacrifice, one that shapes culture, behavior, and the deepest bonds between parent and child. Their children grow under strict and somber laws. To smile is forbidden. Innocent expressions of happiness, those spontaneous glimmers of light that dance across human faces, are seen as reckless and dangerous. Families teach restraint early, not to dampen spirits, but to protect lives. This taboo molds a society where faces are serious, laughter rare, and joy a whispered secret rather than a shared experience. The absence of smiles is not coldness, but a collective act of survival, a silent pact to live longer by denying the body the cost of pleasure. Festivals in this world are inverted reflections of human celebrations. Instead of vibrant, colorful gatherings filled with music, dance, and joy, their festivals are solemn commemorations of grief. They honor loss, mourning, and endurance. Grief becomes a communal balm, a ritual acknowledgement of the sacrifices made, and a reminder of the preciousness of life extended. These gatherings celebrate the strength found in sorrow and the deep bonds forged in shared mourning. This stark inversion challenges everything we understand about happiness and well-being. For humans, joy is a catalyst for connection, healing, and vitality. Laughter is medicine. Pleasure motivates survival and reproduction. But in this existence, joy's cost redefines its value. Pleasure is not an unmitigated good, but a double-edged sword that demands a toll on time itself. The biology underlying this might be a cruel but precise mechanism, where biochemical reactions triggered by joy accelerate cellular aging or metabolic exhaustion. Consider the psychological implications of such a reality. How does a society shaped by the fear of joy cope with love, intimacy, and celebration? Relationships might be subdued, deepened by the gravity of shared restraint. Expressions of affection could take the form of quiet presence rather than exuberant displays. This world would develop rich, complex rituals centered around endurance and reverence for life's fragility, where restraint is the highest form of care. This also reframes our understanding of pleasure as a universal good. Could it be that in some realities, joy is not an unalloyed blessing, but a luxury with profound consequences? It invites reflection on the balance we seek between happiness and longevity, and the sacrifices sometimes hidden beneath seemingly simple pleasures. Examples deepen this understanding. Imagine a child's first smile withheld, replaced by solemnity taught as protection. Picture a community gathering not to sing and dance, but to share stories of survival and loss, their grief binding them more tightly than joy ever could. The rare moments when laughter escapes are treasured yet feared, fleeting sparks against a backdrop of endurance. Biologically, this phenomenon might suggest an evolutionary path where survival is favored over exuberance. Life becomes a careful ledger of moments spent in pleasure versus moments extended in time. It reveals a trade-off between immediate happiness and long-term existence, a choice etched into the very fabric of their being. In conclusion, the reality where joy causes aging is a haunting mirror to our own world's pursuit of happiness. It reveals how deeply intertwined pleasure and mortality can be, transforming joy from a carefree delight into a precious, costly resource. Their culture of restraint, their festivals of grief, and their silent children teach us about sacrifice, endurance, and the complex calculus of life's value. This vision challenges us to rethink joy, not as an unmitigated good, but as a powerful force with consequences, urging a deeper appreciation for the fragile balance between happiness and longevity. Architecture of perception. Imagine a species whose very consciousness is molded not just by biology or experience, but by the spaces they inhabit. Their buildings are not merely shelters or monuments, they are instruments of thought, carefully designed to shape and direct the architecture of their own minds. In this world, architecture and perception are inseparable. The form of a home influences the form of the brain. To live within certain geometric confines is to adopt a certain mindset. Spend enough time inside a square, rigid structure, and the mind begins to reflect those angles, becoming boxed in, constrained, and compartmentalized. The walls do not just enclose space, they enclose thought, framing perception into rigid categories and limiting creativity. This species has discovered this profound connection and harnessed it deliberately. Their architects are not merely builders, but mental engineers, designing homes and public spaces as tools to edit consciousness. The very layout of a room, the curvature of a ceiling, the flow of corridors, each element is chosen to encourage specific cognitive states. Curved, flowing spaces foster fluidity of thought, encouraging imagination and emotional openness. Angular, fragmented structures cultivate analytical precision, but risk mental rigidity. Open-plan designs invite social connectivity, while labyrinthine interiors promote introspection and solitude. Their cities are living experiments in consciousness, with districts tailored to different modes of thinking and feeling. This relationship is not accidental, but central to their culture. They understand that to shape the mind, one must shape the environment. The buildings are extensions of the self, reflecting and guiding internal landscapes as much as external realities. Architecture becomes a language spoken directly to the brain. Consider the consequences of this. Identity is not fixed, but malleable, subject to the rhythms of space and structure. Mental health is partly a matter of spatial harmony. A poorly designed home can fracture thought, inducing anxiety or confusion. Conversely, a well-crafted environment can heal cognitive dissonance, unlocking new potentials of awareness. Their education systems incorporate architecture as a vital curriculum, teaching young ones how to read spaces and understand the psychological effects of shapes, light, and texture. Building a home is a sacred act, a conscious choice to cultivate certain mental states over others. Homes are personalized tools for cognitive shaping, not mere shelters. This dynamic challenges our assumptions about the separation between environment and mind. We think of thought as internal, private, and isolated from physical form. But for this species, cognition is a dialogue with space, a feedback loop where mind and structure co-create each other continuously. Imagine living in a home that slowly alters your perceptions, reframing reality through its geometry. Your thoughts take shape in the rooms you inhabit, and your sense of self shifts with the angles of your walls. Your environment is not neutral. It is active, alive, and deeply entwined with your consciousness. This insight leads to a culture deeply attuned to spatial ethics. Designing a home is a responsibility not only for aesthetics or function, but for mental well-being. Architects wield immense influence as custodians of cognitive health, their work shaping the very minds of their clients. Their cities reflect this philosophy on a grand scale. Urban planners orchestrate the flow of collective thought by zoning areas according to desired cognitive effects. Innovation hubs cluster in fluid open spaces, while administrative districts favor order and clarity. Public spaces are crafted to balance mental energies, promoting societal harmony through spatial design. This species teaches us that perception is not only internal, but sculpted by the external world. They remind us that the places we build and live in echo within us, framing how we think, feel, and experience existence. Their architecture is a mirror and a mold, a powerful force shaping consciousness itself. In a universe where space and mind intertwine, to design a building is to design a mind, a profound act of creation that reaches beyond brick and mortar into the very fabric of thought. Their story challenges us to rethink our relationship with our environments and to recognize that the spaces we inhabit are, in essence, the architecture of our own perception. Sleep equals reproduction. They reproduce not through physical acts as humans understand them, but through the intimate act of sleep, an entwining of minds that transcends the boundaries of individual consciousness. When they lie beside one another, their dreams begin to merge, weaving together in a tapestry of shared experience. It is within these overlapping nightmares that new life is conceived, born not of flesh alone, but of intertwined psyches. For them, love is not a simple emotion or bond. It is a profound psychological fusion, a merging of minds so complete that individuality dissolves into shared existence. Imagine a species where the bedroom is both a sanctuary and a crucible, where sleep is a sacred act of creation. As they drift into slumber, their minds do not retreat inward, but reach outward, seeking connection in the realm of dreams. The boundaries between self and other blur, and nightmares, dark, vivid, and intense, entangle. It is from these shared subconscious journeys that offspring emerge, born of the collective fears, hopes, and memories woven together in the dreaming mindscape. This mode of reproduction upends our understanding of intimacy and procreation. For humans, reproduction is a physical event, separate from mental or emotional connection. But for them, the act of creating new life is inseparable from the psychological space they share in sleep. Their bodies may rest, but their minds are active, merging and blending in ways that produce new consciousnesses. The children born of these overlapping nightmares carry within them the echoes of their parents' shared dreamscapes, the fears that haunted them, the unresolved conflicts, the moments of joy and terror. Each child is a living synthesis of intertwined psyches, a testament to the profound psychological fusion that defines their species. This inheritance is not genetic in the traditional sense, but psychic, passed through the dream state as a complex weave of emotion and experience. Love, then, takes on a form unfamiliar to us. It is not just affection or attachment, but a deep merging of minds, a fusion so intense that the boundaries of identity become porous. To love is to open oneself to dissolution, to risk losing the self in the other, knowing that from this union something new and extraordinary will arise. This psychological fusion is both vulnerable and powerful, a dance of shared consciousness that creates and sustains life. Their society reflects this unique reproductive and emotional dynamic. Social bonds are forged in communal sleep rituals, where groups gather to dream together, weaving networks of shared experience that support the growth of the next generation. Trust and empathy are paramount, for the intimacy of dream fusion exposes the deepest parts of the psyche to others. This challenges human notions of individuality and separation. We prize autonomy and clear boundaries between self and other, yet they demonstrate that life and love can be born from the very dissolution of these boundaries. Their existence invites us to reconsider the nature of connection, suggesting that true intimacy may lie not in physical proximity alone, but in the profound merging of minds. Reflect on the power of sleep in your own life, the moments when your mind drifts, unguarded and free, into the world of dreams. What if those dreams could reach beyond you, touching another's mind and creating something new? Their reality blurs the lines between self and other, between waking and dreaming, between love and creation. In a universe where sleep equals reproduction, where dreams are the cradle of life, the very act of rest becomes a sacred ritual of connection and creation. Their species embodies a profound truth, that the boundaries of identity and life itself are fluid, woven together in the silent, shadowed spaces of the mind. As you absorb this, consider the depths of your own dreams and relationships. What parts of yourself might you share or fuse with others? And in that sharing, what new forms of life, emotional, psychological, or perhaps even literal, might be born? Their story is a powerful reminder that life is not always defined by what we see or touch, but often by the unseen, intangible connections that bind us in the deepest sleep of being. Broadcasted identity loop. Imagine a society where privacy is not just rare, but outright illegal. A civilization where every thought, every feeling, every moment of consciousness is broadcasted live, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is off limits. To live here is to exist within an endless, unbroken loop of observation, where your identity is not a private essence, but a public performance, shaped and sustained entirely through the gaze of others. This phenomenon, called the broadcast identity loop, transforms the very nature of selfhood. For these beings, identity is not something internal or fixed. It is performative, constructed in real time through constant visibility and feedback. Without observers watching, their sense of self unravels. Alone, unobserved, they become lost, forgotten even by themselves, as if the presence of eyes is the glue holding their being together. Imagine the psychological weight of such existence, to never be unseen, to have your thoughts streamed live, accessible to countless others simultaneously. Every reaction, every impulse, every fleeting doubt or joy is on display. There is no private moment to gather yourself, no sanctuary from the world's scrutiny. This relentless openness breeds a form of identity that is fluid, fragile, and entirely dependent on social validation. Their minds are wired differently. Rather than grounding selfhood in solitude or internal reflection, they anchor their sense of I in the collective gaze. Their consciousness becomes a dynamic construct, continually rewritten by the responses and judgments of watchers. The self is a broadcast channel, and without viewers tuning in, it flickers and fades into non-existence. From an evolutionary standpoint, such a system might have emerged in environments where survival hinged on transparency, trust, or conformity. Concealment becomes a form of rebellion, an act punishable by exile or erasure. The species evolves to live in perpetual connection, their neural architecture wired to require external validation as a source of identity. This challenges our deepest assumptions about individuality and privacy. We cherish solitude as a space for authenticity and self-discovery. Yet these beings suggest a radically different truth. Identity is a social phenomenon, impossible without the eyes and minds of others. Their self is less a solitary monologue and more a collaborative broadcast, a co-creation between performer and audience. Consider the impact on culture and communication. Art, speech, and behavior are all part of a continuous live show, shaped by real-time feedback loops. Authenticity is measured not by inner truth, but by audience reception. Reputation and memory become communal records, shaped by collective attention. To exist is to be perpetually on, performing the role that sustains your identity. But what happens when one slips out of view? When the broadcast signal weakens or falters? For them, the loss of observation is existential danger. Without an audience, the self collapses into forgetfulness. They lose track of their own thoughts, their own history, because those memories were never fully internal, but encoded in the shared attention of others. This cycle creates a feedback loop, a loop of dependency, where broadcast fuels identity, and identity demands broadcast. The loop is unending and inescapable, a digital panopticon writ large in the biology of the mind. It mirrors social media extremes taken to their logical conclusion, where lives become public spectacle and privacy is a myth. Philosophically, the broadcasted identity loop interrogates freedom, autonomy, and the nature of consciousness. Are we truly ourselves when shaped by the constant gaze of others? Does anonymity free us or rob us of identity? This alien existence forces us to reconsider the boundaries between public and private, self and other, reality and performance. For humans, the idea is both familiar and alien. We live increasingly public lives online, sharing our thoughts and moments with vast audiences. Yet, unlike them, we still retreat into solitude, find privacy, and hold fragments of self beyond observation. The alien species takes this to the extreme, where self outside the gaze is a void. In contemplating this, we are reminded of the fragile balance in our own lives, the need to be seen and understood, balanced with the sanctuary of being unseen and authentic. The broadcasted identity loop reveals a universe where identity is inseparable from visibility, and where the gaze of others is the lifeblood of self. They exist as living broadcasts, streams of consciousness that flicker only in the eyes of others. Without observation, they cease to be, reminding us that sometimes who we are depends not only on ourselves, but on the world watching back.